Well, all right, all right, all right. How we all doing today? We are back. We are back for more. Never gets old. Yesterday, people said they wanted me to check out someone by the name of LonerBox. Cool name. What up, everyone? Let's take a look. Someone says, damn, it feels good to be a gangsta, a wanksta, a little pranksta, a something and a dun dun, a lot of nothing dun and nothing dun. Let's do it. Let's do this thing.
Israel is trying to force the United States to formally merge the American and Israeli militaries. Did you hear what I just said?
You're so shagged. It's like, what was this? We saw this with the crystal ball thing. It's like integrating and tightening coordination when it comes to missile defense. Like the system. Yes, we want. Oh god, this guy is so fucking shagged, man. His brain is actually, his brain is milk. What is going on in this head? It's like sludge.
The West Bank. No Hamas here. Just Palestinians living under.
Where's the martyr's oasis? Save me, Hamas. Debunk him for me. Do my job. Are these all the West Bank ones? West Bank, West Bank, West Bank. West Bank, West Bank, West Bank.
LonerBox. Live.
Hey everyone, as
Hey.
you know, I'm a science communicator who explains science and debunks science-denying frauds. Quite the Venn diagram exists between anti-science propaganda, predatory capitalism, Christian nationalism, and Zionism, which means I end up bringing up Israel from time to time. Zionists hate that, so they attack me constantly, like what happened recently with a guy named Destiny. Let's talk about him. If you don't know who Stephen Bonnell, aka Destiny, is, he's a media personality who takes to defending liberal and progressive viewpoints on most political topics. He sounds smart enough when debunking MAGA talking points, and if that's all he ever did, you'd be hearing nothing negative about him from me. But that activity is dramatically overshadowed by his unrelenting Zionism and support for the never-ending parade of human rights violations being perpetrated by the genocidal ethno-state that is Israel. Whether he is being paid by Israel or is genuinely just dumb enough to have fallen for Israeli propaganda and is in too deep now to admit it, I can't say. But he recently decided to poke the hornet's nest by doing a particularly slanderous
That was a false dichotomy, by the way, by Dave.
live stream about me, accusing me of being a Jew-hating neo-Nazi. It's called Professor Dave Goes Mask Off. And the thumbnail says, these fucking Zionists, where Zionists is covering the word Jews.
That's crazy.
Implying that I really just hate all Jews. In it, he's
most of them, right?
reacting to
That
my
was the
third
impression I got.
and most recent video exposing Avi Loeb, the astrophysicist and charlatan, in which, amidst breaking down his endless lies about science, I point out yet again in passing his ties to the Zionist lobby and how he employs Zionist tactics of gaslighting and playing the victim to deflect when his fraudulence is exposed. I'll just play you Destiny's intro stinger to his video so you can get a sense of it. The blatant manipulation, opportunism, and perpetual victim complex is par for the course when dealing with disgusting Zionist frauds like him. Anyway, science as much as they want, and if anyone exposes those lies, they're automatically an anti-Semite.
What, bro? This guy reaches so hard. Holy shit, he's obsessed.
I'm not sure if you noticed, but the whole world despises your ideology. The world knows your gaslighting and your Hasbara tactics. Shouting anti-Semitism at everyone that hurts your feelings is just going to hasten your demise tenfold. So keep it up, you worthless Zionist pile of filth.
And I didn't mention
It's just
Judaism.
like, you would never get away with this with any other group. For one, people always challenge this idea that like this completely fucking disproportionate obsession with Israel. Because I say disproportionate because there are two countries bordering Israel that have had civil wars where more Arabs were murdered than Israel has killed in the entirety of their existence. The Lebanese Civil War killed like 150,000 people. And again, by that point in the 1980s and 90s, like Israel had not killed 150,000 Arabs, not even close. And Syria in the Civil War, even if you count Gaza, Assad murdered like at least a third of like 300,000 of his own people just to stay in power, and Hezbollah helped him. So And that proportionality kind of matters because I seem to remember a vague part of the was it when I was skimming through this video of Professor Dave saying that like groups like Hamas and Hezbollah and all that are like they're resisting Israel and therefore like that's a good thing. They get a pass even though they supported someone bordering Israel who killed more Arabs in a civil war of 15 years than Israel's killed in their entire existence. Like, that's crazy.
Shall we grab a transcript here or what? What's up, everyone? Welcome back. We're taking a look at someone by the name of LonerBox today. I believe it was LonerBox who went on an Israel tour with Destiny. If I'm wrong about that, fact check me. Let's start a wave of it. By the way, I spent some time today with a colleague of mine, Thomas the Beautiful, and we are working on finding ways to get, when I do these long fact check sessions, like we're talking like 18 hours worth, it's really easy for even the best systems that we can muster to make errors when trying to go for as close to absolute accuracy as we can get with regards to creating final data documents that accurately depict the fact checking I've done. So we released one document, the first initial document that, of course, when we released it, fallible, open to update. We're going to be updating it. There's going to be a version 2 coming out within the next couple days that will have a lot of corrections I want to see in that document. Basically, this process will continue going, version 2, version 3, version 4, with regards to like getting the right data, the documented data compared to the fact checking I did, so that there really aren't any mistakes left at the end of the day. So we're going to keep doing that, going through that process. There's going to be different versions coming out, so stay tuned. I want to do this kind of thing publicly. Release documents, show the work, show the refinement. Version 2 comes out, version 3 comes out, get people used to updating their knowledge, their beliefs. Bayesian reasoning, which I promote, is all about updating your beliefs when new evidence comes to light. And that's what I want to see people doing. That's what I want to help contribute to in society, getting us used to having that practice. I think it's a very healthy thing to do. So the process at Pangburn is going to be that of showing you the work as we do the work. We're not going to hold it back for, a couple months until we have a pristine document. We're going to show the work as we move along, and we're going to incorporate the Pangburn community in processing the work, in contributing to the work. We've had some great contributions from people in the Pangburn community already who have given some suggestions to the data document that we released. But it's a huge amount of information. The original transcript plus the 18 hours of content I did. Someone said, "Hi, Dave. Would you ever post a list of book recommendations?" Oh, 1 second. Oh, careful. Someone said, "Hi, Dave. Would you ever post a list of book recommendations?" Yeah, I'll recommend something for you, dickbag. Never think about flat Earth again. Something like that. Yeah. So thank you so much for the super chat, by the way. But I'm not Dave, but would you ever post a list of book recommendations? Yeah, I mean, I would start with Bertrand Russell's treatment on Western philosophy, history of Western philosophy. It's a great place to start with for any thinker. The meditation books by Marcus Aurelius. Often they come as one book, but they are multiple books. The Republic. Everyone should read the Republic by Plato. And what else? Pale Blue Dot. How about that? You are correct, Pangburn. They interviewed Purple from all sides. Thanks for the. You didn't have to send another super chat, but you meant Travis. Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for supporting the stream. I really appreciate it. So yeah, keep an eye out for the compiled data. Much easier job doing the fact checks like we did on the fly, even though it takes a long time, 18 hours. But getting a good compiled, purely accurate document, like I like to see, is kind of a quote unquote final product, is something that will take some time. But we will release revisions along the way. Yeah. So let's grab this transcript. Did we already do that? Yeah, we already did that. And I would like to take a peek here. Ooh. I also have a rapid fire forensic fact check. Of all of the misinformation, false, misleading, unsupported claims by Dave, that we'll probably go through tonight as well. I wanted to take a little bit of look because quite a few people had said take a look at LonerBox, and they said he's doing some good work on this video. But yes, I also have a rapid fire misinformation piece that I'm going to record live, and that'll probably be released as a video tomorrow. Yeah, over there, if you want to email me anything, go ahead. My email is travis@pang-burn.com. That sounds really interesting. I'm a really big fan of the true crime world as well. I take in a lot of true crime content. All right, let's see. I have the transcript also that I want to put into my system of what LonerBox is doing. I just want to get a sense of what the accuracy level of his work is generally looking like. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome. We're getting quite the nice little live stream community here. I love it. Hopefully you are all members of the Pangburn Discord community already. But we're going to be rocking and rolling late again tonight. Ooh, I'm excited to go through this deep. Yeah, it's giving me a false collective claim. This is all pulled from my live stream. Yeah, so once we start breaking down the numbers, we got in Dave's video, just in the video itself, we have 85 claim clusters that break down into 26 false contradicted claims, 24 unsupported claims, and 35 misleading / overstated claims. Yeah, so 85 claim clusters that are just at best misleading, overstated. But let's hear a little more from LonerBox here, and I'll run a little bit of an analysis.
It's like if you had someone who, and people say, well, that's just like the anti-Zionism, not the anti-Semitism. But again, the proportion of vitriol that you have towards a certain group is obviously going to matter in terms of if there is going to make people wonder if there are any details about that group that's making you doing that. So if you have someone in the UK and one of their top 3 issues is grooming gangs, all they talk about is fucking grooming gangs. They're obsessed. If they have an argument with someone that's got nothing to do with grooming gangs, they'll say, oh yeah, standard grooming gang behavior. That's just what the standard grooming gang gaslighting, standard grooming gang fucking takia, whatever. Like, you would never have someone like that and not assume that they were probably Islamophobic, right? Like, that'd be very...
You shouldn't assume people are Islamophobic for that if they're obsessed with that issue. That doesn't mean they're Islamophobic. One thing does not follow the other.
Difficult to do. So I just wonder how we get the same predicament where you get people who will steer out of, because this guy's like a science explainer, right? Like he debates flat earthers and shit. It's really difficult to imagine someone like that when the only time they'll come out and have this epic fucking vitriol for human rights abuses in the world or for humanitarian suffering in the world, but 99.9% of that ire is directed at Israel, when Israel literally is like neighbored with countries that have killed more Arabs than Israel has in their entire existence, or with the Axis of Resistance, or with the...
Yeah, so again, just because the person is... maybe they're getting caught up in the pop culture of Israel-Palestine, which is way more publicized, way more engaged with those other things that LonerBox here pointed out. So there's actually good reason to believe why someone like Dave would get sucked into something like this. It doesn't mean he hates Jews, right? I mean, I'm not going to deny there is a lot of anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic tropes in throughout Dave Farina's whole video. I mean, it's there. That doesn't mean I don't think we're justified to say that Dave is an actual anti-Semite. I don't think we have good evidence for that. It's not that with all the anti-Semitic tropes, it's not a reasonable question to ask, but I think when you investigate the available evidence, I don't think you're reasonably justified to claim that about Dave. So I'm seeing some, little bit of sketchy reasoning to begin with here, but that's okay. It's all a process. We're all learning.
The crimes that are going on in Sudan, or with Myanmar, or like with the way that China treats Muslims. When people have that level of proportionality, it makes you come back to that quote that's like, anti-Semitism is hating Jews more than is absolutely necessary, right? Like, obviously it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but if you are Jewish, you're going to look at someone who behaves like that, and you are probably going to think, so why are we so special? Because it's not to do with numbers. It's not to...
There's also this thing where it's like, if you look at some of those cores of Zionism, there's really good reasons to, some people will just equate Zionism just in general to like believing that Jews have a right to have a place to exist, right? A place they can call home. I've heard people talk about this in many different ways, sometimes in the soft serve sense, sometimes in the hard serve sense. So yeah, if like you have someone engaging with, espousing anti-Semitic tropes, it's reasonable to ask that question. Like, and then if they just say, it's just Zionists I hate. Well, based on my study, the majority of Jews in the world would accept the Zionist label. That doesn't mean they're all going to agree with everything that other Zionists do, but yeah. And then if a a Jewish person comes across something like Dave is saying there, and they're like, hey, like, I wear the Zionist label, but I use it in a more softer sense, like about like we have a right to exist. We have a right to have our own place to feel safe. And we can look at like, and I'm just talking more colloquially because there are, of course, academic usages of Zionism, right? So let's look at like academic usages and versus like colloquial usages. This is also why it's a really bad idea to just broad brush paint like all Zionists into one camp like Dave does in this video. Zionists are not all the same. They're just not. Just like liberals aren't all the same, right? Conservatives are not all the same. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Smash that like button. Brings more people to the stream here. I'll do a little bit of reading. We'll hear a little more here.
To do with the scale of suffering, before October 7th, I think they'd recorded that it was the deadliest year in the West Bank for quite a while, and it was like 200 people had died in a year. And like in terms of scale of human suffering and conflicts around the world, like this was not, even after Gaza, it's not in the.
It depends how those 200 people died, right? So we're gonna fact check that, see if that's true. It depends how those 200 people died, right? That matters. Let's see if that's clarified.
The top of the list, even for its time, compared to like Yemen or Sudan or Syria, but all the attention goes to Israel, and all the.
It's not all about numbers, right?
Ire goes to Israel, and you're just like, why?
I said Zionism. Get a grip.
It's not all the ire. There are some people who never, point any ire at Israel. Like you don't want to just count the hits and leave out the misses. Try to give a holistic picture. There's also a lot of people who won't criticize Israel, right? They'll just point the finger at other people. So, in academic history and political theory, Zionism normally refers to a historically specific family of Jewish nationalist movements and ideologies concerned with establishing and after 1948 sustaining a Jewish national home or state in Palestine, the land of Israel. So, kind of a defensible minimal definition, Zionism is the modern Jewish national movement that sought to establish a Jewish homeland or state in Palestine, and that after Israel's creation generally supports Israel's continued existence and development as a Jewish state. Oxford defines it as a movement originally seeking the reestablishment and now the development and protection of a Jewish nation in what is now Israel. Brill similarly describes it as a late 19th century movement seeking a national homeland for diaspora Jews. Important academic qualifications. Zionism is not one unified doctrine. It's kind of what I was mentioning before. Scholars frequently speak of Zionism because the movement contained and still contains substantially different currents. Political Zionism, labor or socialist Zionism, revisionist Zionism, religious Zionism, cultural Zionism, liberal or egalitarian Zionism, territorial maximalist and territorial compromise positions. Again, why we shouldn't just broad brush people. If you're a Zionist, you're equal to, the N-word. Not that N-word. Oxford's academic introduction, for example, separately examines socialist and revisionist Zionism, nationalism, I think it's Messianism or Messianism, and later transformations. Political theorist Chaim Gans distinguishes several competing contemporary interpretations, including hierarchical, proprietary, and egalitarian versions. Therefore, calling someone a Zionist does not by itself tell you their position on Netanyahu, Gaza, West Bank settlements. Are you listening, Dave? Palestinian statehood, the 1967 borders, annexation, secularism, democracy, equal citizenship, the current Israeli government. A liberal two-state Zionist and a religious territorial maximalist may both use the label while disagreeing on nearly every major policy question. Jewish self-determination is common shorthand, but it is incomplete. A common contemporary definition is simply support for Jewish national self-determination in the Jewish people's historic homeland. That captures Zionism's normative core, but it can obscure historically important questions. Where, through what institutions, with what borders, under what demographic arrangements, and with what consequences for the existing Palestinian Arab population. Some academic reference works therefore define Zionism more concretely as an ethno-national ideology that sought both Jewish self-determination and the creation of a sustainable Jewish demographic and political center in Palestine. Settler colonialism is an analysis of Zionism, not a neutral synonym for it. In scholarship, Zionism may be interpreted through different frameworks: nationalism, national liberation, ethno-nationalism, colonialism, settler colonialism, diaspora politics, or combinations of these. The fact that a scholar analyzes Zionism as settler colonialism does not mean that settler colonialism is the ordinary lexical definition of Zionism. Likewise, describing it solely as Jewish national liberation expresses one interpretation while potentially omitting Palestinian experience and British imperial context. Oxford's academic overview explicitly situates Zionism within modern Jewish nationalism, Middle Eastern politics, and British colonialism. Colloquial and political usages. These are important to look at. In everyday political discourse, Zionist is used much more loosely. So the colloquial usage, someone who believes Israel should continue to exist as a Jewish state. And the accuracy, reasonably close to a minimal contemporary definition. So we're going to do the colloquial usage, and then we'll see how accurate it is. Someone who supports Israel. Ambiguous. Support could mean existence, alliance, or particular policies. Someone who supports the Israeli government. Usually inaccurate. Many Zionists oppose Israeli governments. Someone who supports Netanyahu. Clearly too narrow. Someone who supports settlements or greater Israel. Describes particular forms of Zionism, not Zionism generally. An Israeli. Incorrect. Israelis can be Zionists, non-Zionists, or even anti-Zionists. A Jew. Incorrect. Jewish identity and Zionist ideology are not identical. A colonialist, racist, or supremacist. A polemical judgment, not a neutral definition. Anyone who refuses to abolish Israel. Politically common, not conceptually overboard. Overbroad, I should say. Anyone sympathetic to Israeli civilians. Far too broad. The most serious colloquial distortion. Sometimes Zionist is used as a substitute for Jew, especially in claims that Zionists secretly control governments, banks, media, or institutions. Are we all paying attention, Dave? That is not simply an alternative definition of Zionism. It reproduces traditional conspiracy allegations, Dave, about Jews under substituted vocabulary. So the way Dave does it, though, is through the use of anti-Semitism and Zionism. He doesn't say Jews. But the traditional conspiracy allegations by way of the Zionist label, by way of Israel, connects to many Jews. In fact, the majority of Jews, if you consider that the majority of Jews on this planet, which my research tells me, would accept the Zionist label. But it doesn't always mean the same thing, right? That's why you should not reduce people to a single label, like Dave has done in his video. The IHRA identifies allegations of collective Jewish control and holding Jews collectively responsible for Israel as anti-Semitic. However, criticism of Zionism itself is not automatically anti-Semitic. A person may oppose Jewish nation-state sovereignty, prefer a binational state, criticize Zionism's historical implementation, or analyze it as colonial without expressing hostility toward Jews. Context, reasoning, and the presence or absence of anti-Jewish generalization matter. The Jerusalem Declaration was specifically developed to distinguish political speech about Israel and Zionism from anti-Semitism. Okay, and just quickly, the cleanest distinction. Academic usage, a historically situated and internally diverse Jewish nationalist movement aimed at creating and sustaining a Jewish national home or state in Palestine, the land of Israel. Common contemporary self-description. Belief in Jewish national self-determination and Israel's continued existence as a Jewish state. Colloquial political usage. Anything from supports Israel's existence to supports Netanyahu, supports settlements, is Israeli, or even is Jewish, several of which are major distortions. The most academically responsible approach is to ask, what form of Zionism, what historical period, and what specific political commitment are being discussed? Without those qualifications, statements such as Zionists believe X are often analytically weak. Dave's video is full of Zionist this, Zionist that. Well, Dave, do you understand that there are many different forms of Zionism? Surely you can't be talking about all forms of Zionism. I mean, anyways, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being with me. We're going to be going through a lot of information today. Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, this is a good quiz for me. Someone said majority 51%. My memory is that based on global polling, it's roughly 60 to 70% of Jews globally would accept the Zionist label, but let me double check that. Let's see if I'm remembering correctly.
Oh, it's just because America funds them. Oh, well, that's okay. Well, shit, yeah. Oh, so you really only care because American tax dollars are going there? So you'll stop caring about it just as soon as the tax-paying.
I really got to activate my.
The taxpayers' money stops.
Get rid
Well,
of
that's morally logical. Okay.
like rhetoric right here, you even know you don't. This is Nazism right here, right?
Nazism.
Deception and victimization are like the two key pillars of kind of neo-Nazi belief. It's the idea that Jews are secretly behind the scenes controlling everything to deceive you, and they deceive you about that control. And then the self-victimization is they constantly harp about the Holocaust. Oh my God.
We already talked about this in the other video. I think it's more accurate to say that this stuff is like anti-Semitic adjacent, or one might be justified to say that there's some anti-Semitic tropes being espoused here.
We get it. But the reason why they have to harp about the Holocaust is because they have to center their victimhood so that they have an infinite blank check, basically, to deceive you and to control society.
Yes, that's exactly what I said. Because there's Sudan, you can't care about Israel. That's why I kept on talking about proportionality and attention being paid to it. Yeah, that's why, like, same with the same person who spends 99% of their time in UK politics talking about grooming gangs. I'm sure their response to me is like, yeah, just because Jimmy Savile was a thing, that means we can't care about the grooming gangs. Yeah, you're a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. Like, there's nothing I can do to help you. You will always be dumb. You will die stupid. And it's not my...
No, they won't die stupid. They're not always a fucking idiot. You shouldn't attack people like that. It's juvenile. You got to transcend. It's more wise to not trigger people into identity defense, people who might think the same way with regards to the person you're currently targeting there. You want to cause people to remain cognitively flexible. That leaves them open to your perspectives. I'm sure you believe, LonerBox, that your perspectives are correct. You don't, this is so clear in cognitive science. When you do this kind of attacking, it just causes so much identity defense, closes off the mind. People become cognitively rigid and defensive. It's not a good thing to do. It's just demonstrably not a successful way to win the war of ideas. We can just demonstrate this by way of cognitive science.
My fault.
Kind of crazy to just, but whatever.
Yes, he is literally calling me a Nazi. Deconstructing this farce will come at the end of this video, but we have a lot of context to set up and information to get through first. Honestly, so many people have asked...
LonerBox missed that one. He wasn't literally calling him a Nazi. He was referring to what he said. There's a difference between attacking the person and attacking their arguments or their words or their behaviors.
me to make a video formally summarizing...
I mean, two guide. Okay, one more for the boys. Nobody defends what's happening in Sudan and Yemen. People like you actually defend Israel. For one, people do actually defend part of what you were mentioning there. People do defend the Houthis. People praise and celebrate the Houthis more than I've
Correct.
ever praised or celebrated Israel, even though the Houthis, according to
I don't know about that, maybe.
fucking everyone who matters, contributed to that famine. They contributed to it. They fucked the UN by kidnapping their aid workers and misappropriating so much aid that the UN just said, yeah, there's not even any point in us sending aid anymore. We're just going to have to, like, I'm sorry, what can we do? We can't get it to the people who need it. We're going to have to stop, even when it was allowed in. Fuck me.
All right, let's see if I was correct in my estimation. I knew. Oh, yeah, give it to me. I said 60% of it. So roughly 9 to 10 million Jews worldwide, about 60%, would likely accept the label Zionist. A defensible uncertainty range is approximately 8.5 million to 10.5 million Jews, or 55 to 65% of the global Jewish population. There's no representative worldwide survey directly asking Jewish population whether they personally accept the label. So this must be estimated from national surveys. The world's core Jewish population is approximately 15.8 million, about 7.2 million in Israel, 6.3 million in the United States, and 2.3 million elsewhere. A reasonable weighted estimate looks like this. We're going to go population, approximate size, plausible label acceptance, estimated Zionist identifiers. So Israeli Jews, approximate size 7.2 million, roughly 75 to 90% is roughly the plausible label acceptance. So estimated Zionists would be about 5.4 to 6.5 million. American Jews, much less plausible label acceptance. So there's about 6.3 million Jews in the USA. Approximately 37%, only 37% would would be Zionist identifiers. Other diaspora Jews, 2.3 million roughly 50 to 65% of them would accept the Zionist label. That would be 1.2 to 1.5 million. So worldwide, we're looking at, roughly 55 to 65% would accept the Zionist label, and that accumulates to 8.9 to 10.3 million Jews. That's a lot of Zionists, Dave. And again, not all the same type. There are different kinds. The strongest current direct evidence comes from the United States. A nationally structured 2025 JFNA survey found that 37% explicitly identified as Zionist, while 8% identified as non-Zionist, 7% as anti-Zionist, and 48% chose none of those labels. Yet 88% still agreed that Israel has the right to exist as a Jewish and democratic state. So you see that in that polling, there's a massive difference, right? Some people would say if you agree that Israel has the right to exist as a Jewish and democratic state, someone like Dave, I would guess, and this is speculation based on, the studying I've done on Dave thus far with regards to Zionism, he would think that would make that person a Zionist in his eyes. So anyways, there's different polling data around the world, but that's generally where the numbers are at. 60% is a good estimate. So that means I was right. My memory's working. Yeah. Okay.
My stance on Israel, and this was an excuse to do it, while also highlighting what a douche this guy is. Beyond his nauseating defense of Israel, he also has some really bizarre skeletons in his closet that I was able to come across. Hornet's nest, remember? But we will get back to him in due time.
For years now, but this time I'm actually going to start. Cope. Are there 1 or 2 books you would recommend for someone getting into IP history?
Thanks for the $20. I really appreciate that. It's really kind of you. Damn. If you're going to talk about, depends on which period. If you want an overall, I would say 2 books are quite good for your both sides. One is Benny Morris's Righteous Victims. The other one, 100 Years War.
Sorry, just trying to move a bit forward here.
YouTube is one getting into IP history.
Thanks for the $20. I really appreciate that. It's really kind of you. Damn. If you're going to talk about, depends on which period. If you want an overall, I would say 2 books are quite good for your both sides. One is Benny Morris's Righteous Victims. The other one is Khaledi's 100 Years War in Palestine.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Take 1 itty-bitty second to smash that like button. It attracts more people to this fact-finding mission.
Those are probably the best holistic ones from each respective side.
Now, many of you are aware that this is not the first time I've been harassed and slandered by Zionists, not by a long shot. Right after the genocide began, for several months I was spending way too much time on Twitter, relentlessly combating Zionist propaganda being disseminated by hordes of paid influencers whose job it was to brainwash the masses and manufacture consent for genocide. You've never seen propaganda anywhere in your life like what was being vomited up at that time. A fabrication of 40 beheaded babies, which Joe Biden himself publicly claimed to have seen photographic evidence of, only to later walk back and admit that no such evidence exists, since it's not a thing that happened. Fabricated claims of a baby being...
Where was that doc? 40 beheaded babies. Okay.
Yeah, we'll see what LonerBox says about this. This was a fabrication. This was false, perpetuated by people like Joe Biden, who said he saw the photos and he was either lying or just, I don't know what the hell was going on, but almost certainly lying.
This is going to be a long afternoon, my guys. 40 beheaded babies. I'll probably bullet point this afterwards. I wrote a little doc about this claim, the timeline about where it came from. It wasn't a French journalist. I remember some people used to say that. I think it was an American journalist on an Israeli outlet. This is where that came from.
We're actually still moving through the community. It's starting to exit now, but I want to show you just some of the destruction to these houses as well, because as I showed you, all of the destruction that these terrorists committed on foot as they bombarded and massacred this community. There were also air raids and rockets happening overhead, completely taking out buildings like this one.
So in this news item somewhere, I've got the direct quote.
This is nice that he's playing the video. It's good context. I like that.
So I'm not going to play the whole 3 minutes. She said that she quotes a soldier. She says that a soldier told her something about 40 babies being taken out on gurneys. That's it. She doesn't mention beheadings in this one, I don't think. I think she mentions like in another thing that people had been beheaded, which actually, ironically, that part is true. There was a video of one guy trying to decapitate
Yeah, he's on the right track here, and then the stories get conflated and twisted together.
a worker and a couple of other witness statements of people who had been like adults who had been beheaded. But in another report, the same journalist had also said that she had heard something about soldiers saying that there were babies with their heads cut off. So
Correct.
these two items got squeezed together to make 40 beheaded babies, right? Even though she never actually said that. She said that she heard a soldier, she quotes a soldier saying there are babies being taken out on gurneys, or 40 babies. And then there's, and some people have been beheaded. And then there's this one where she talks about babies with their heads cut off, right? Again, she had heard soldiers talking about it. So she's probably accurately quoting what those soldiers said. I don't doubt soldiers, when Hamas are literally still in Israeli territory and after they've just suffered the worst terrorist attack in Jewish life and since the Holocaust, then they're probably going to have people who say mad shit. That happens all the time. The problem came when people who had a bit of authority, Netanyahu's spokesperson Tal Heinrich, said that there were toddlers or babies with some of their heads cut off. I think this was here.
Lastly, when you listed the unconscionable atrocities that took place in that kibbutz, you did say that babies had been decapitated. Can I take that as confirmation then? Because that currently is being reported as reported action. That has actually happened, has it, Tal?
Toddlers, babies. I can tell you that they, some of them, heads were cut off. This is what we're hearing from from soldiers on the ground and
soldiers on the ground
dealt with the bodies.
Yeah, when this is when now she's hearing this from soldiers. People should right away in your mind this has to be investigated and adjudicated. It's not that soldiers always lie, but this needs some verification before the world starts spreading around this rumor, potentially true thing that has happened. But you want to verify things like this before you start spreading it around. This kind of stuff would fuel would fuel some level of propaganda like kind of usage, like pro people who are pro Israel, pro Israeli cause with regards to their reaction after October 7th. Obviously were enraged with what had happened. This would fuel that rage, right? And then it turns out that it wasn't the case. And it's not that there weren't so many devastating things to be enraged about, but yeah, it's just so important that we try to do our best to disseminate information and share information in a way that is fallible. Urging people not to commit to this, that this still needs to be investigated, not just spreading what might just be rumors or soldiers misreading situations or whatnot. So yeah,
these bodies are still being, some of them evacuated. I can tell you that people who were on this foreign media tour to the that kibbutz, some of them vomited. International journalists, many of them cried, in fact. These were images very hard to process of tiny bags, tiny buddy bags.
Okay.
Master English with AI. Practice only 15 minutes per day to speak like a native. Let's get started.
And we know actually why there were some small body bags. It's because there were bodies that had been blown up by fucking RPGs and shit. And there were parts that were being bagged kind of clumsily by Zaka, right? So these are kind of like the three things. Is we've got journalists who are repeating murmurs, which we now know are rumors from soldiers in the press, and they're saying they came from soldiers. And this spokesperson is obviously giving it a lot more credit than it deserved. Now, Biden did
Yes, very, very good eyes and ears for LonerBox here.
say that he had seen pictures of terrorists beheading children. I think this was on the same day. Obviously, he hadn't, and he was referring to probably one of these reports. And the White House later clarified and basically said that he had like fudged his words in no short way. But so this part of the story is true. Some journalists, well, one journalist really, quoted soldiers saying that they had seen beheaded babies on October 10th, right? And then a Netanyahu spokesperson repeated that claim that it had been said by soldiers. What people don't say is that on the same day, on the exact same day, the IDF spokesperson, so the actual, official, said that this claim couldn't be verified. So he said he couldn't confirm. Where was it? So basically, like immediately, the IDF spokesperson is being told that this report about the babies and the number he can't confirm. So the actual military is saying they can't confirm it. So now we've got.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing, this specific report and the number I can't confirm. People who have I don't want to generalize. I can see how a person could misread that under certain circumstances as, okay, that there's a number that they're trying to confirm, but they can't confirm right now. Like with this kind of messaging to the world, that specific report I cannot confirm. It seems nitpicky, but like this is the way these kinds of this kind of misinformation gets spread around the world and has a drastic effect on human well-being.
Journalists have said that soldiers are saying it. That's it. Like that's really all we've got. And then on October 12th, so 48 hours after that journalist said what she had heard from soldiers, the government, from an Israeli official, said that they cannot confirm babies were beheaded. This is the claim that people are trying to argue was spread around the world aggressively by the IDF and by the Israeli government to manufacture consent for a genocide. No, it came from a journalist, and within 48 hours, the IDF and the Israeli government are saying, yeah, we can't verify that. We're not.
Yeah, if people were thinking that this is, they're trying to use this to manufacture consent for a genocide. Yeah, there was obviously no good reason to believe that.
Claiming that. But that second half of that story never really gets mentioned for some reason.
Cooked in an oven. Endless claims of rape when in fact it is Israel that's...
Oh my fucking God. It's going to take so long. So why are Israelis repeating it to this day? How often are Israelis repeating it? How often are they doing that? Same thing about the claim about babies being thrown in ovens, because that came from a particularly colorful character in Zaka. That's where it came from. Again, the problem.
I have an audit now, so I've gotten a sense of where LonerBox coming from. Needs some improvement generally on the reasoning there, but I want to go to 2129.
No, I think this process is probably valuable because we've done so many of these where we just respond off the cuff. It might be good to actually show you just like how on the nose fucking retarded these claims are. Like,
hey, he attacked the claims and not the person. Good on you, LonerBox. I like that. I like that.
Individuals. He was acting as claimed by individuals, and describing them into an entire country, even when every single one of these claims were almost immediately refuted.
Wow. That's on this one.
By the Israeli military government themselves. Okay, good.
Baby being cooked in an oven, endless claims of rape when in fact it is Israel that systematically rapes Palestinian prisoners in the most brutal.
Okay, was it the Patton report that we're talking about here? 4 articles in 2 seconds. Thanks, Dave. Yep, it's the one about the Palestinian Authority that we're looking for here. Where is the one where they talk about the Palestinian Authority? Because they actually do specifically mention claim. Oh, it would have been prolonged forced nudity, right? That would be. Is this with the PA? Regarding the occupied Palestinian territory, the mission team visited Ramallah and the occupied West Bank to engage with the PA, Ministries of Foreign Affairs. Okay. The mission team also met with the Palestinian Independent Commission for Human Rights. Okay. Non-government. Okay. West Bank. Sexual violence received by the mandate, especially committed by security forces and settlers. Threats of where is it that they mention actually specifically rape itself, given that this is the kind of thing that he's expecting for October 7th. Okay. Here we are. Okay. Sexual harassment, threats, intimidation, threats. No instances of rape were reported. Palestinians, women's organizations consistently stressed that in addition to intimidations, insecurity, the high level of stigmatization, conservative cultural norms, and the power imbalances in the context of occupation impedes reporting of sexual violence. Of prisoners in the most brutal way possible. I'm not sure what Dave is comparing this to. Let me see. It remains the case that in conflict seems to feature sexual violence significantly less than in other conflicts, e.g. Rwanda, Yugoslavia, or even Syria and Lebanon. Mission into the West Bank. Well, it find evidence. Female prisoners used several horrible ways. Reported. Reply.
Let's see. I'm not sure Dave is comparing this, what Dave is comparing this to, but it remains the case that the Israel-Palestine conflict seems to feature sexual violence significantly less than other conflicts, like Rwanda, Yugoslavia, or Syria. I mean, that doesn't matter. That's deflecting from the issue of instances of rape here. So the early 2024 UN mission reported no rape allegation from the narrow set of West Bank interviews it conducted while recording forced nudity, threats, and other sexual violence. Let's let him finish on this issue, and then we'll see what he concludes here.
Same standard to rape.
But like pointing to other levels of rape, like why deal with the claim Dave is making, right? It doesn't soften the blow for even one individual rape case. Doesn't matter if you're at war or what. So what's the point of pointing to Rwanda or Yugoslavia?
On October 7th, he would be demanding video evidence of each singular.
If Dave were to apply the same standard that people do to rapes on October 7th, he would be demanding video evidence.
Incident. Okay.
Of each single incident. Again, like, what are we doing here? That doesn't mean Dave isn't necessarily going to demand video evidence. This is where we start falling into like political rhetoric and trying to be convincing, steering people away from the claim in question. So yeah, it's not like I think for people who are educated, they're going to realize that like the claim was made. It wasn't that Dave wasn't saying that in comparison to other conflicts like Yugoslavia or in Syria or Lebanon, there's way more rape happening here in this conflict. Dave didn't make that claim. So, yeah, it seems like LonerBox is steering the attention away from the claim at hand here.
Let's see. UN mission. Boom. Let's go.
Brutal manner imaginable.
So then he just moved on. Yeah, so my audit says LonerBox treats that limited early finding as if it disposed of the broader detainee abuse allegation. By 2026, the UN had verified rape, gang rape, rape with objects, attempted rape, and genital violence against Palestinian detainees by Israeli armed and security forces. So the correction here, defensible statement, is the February 2024 mission did not receive a rape report in its limited West Bank interviews, but later UN investigations verified rape and other severe sexual violence in detention. So LonerBox should not just push on here. Someone said, "Have you seen much LonerBox content for?" No, I've never heard of LonerBox. Yeah, I don't have YouTube Premium. I'm a poor father. No, I'm kidding. I could get YouTube Premium and I should. Gross. You're gross. But he is he's engaging in false, misleading deflection here. LonerBox is. I want to jump to the next one. We're at around, and by the way, LonerBox seems to be generally a bright person who is operating with a pretty reasonably rigorous epistemic standard of evidence and fact-finding and things like that. But politics can cause people to engage in this kind of falsehood, misleading, not checking, not vastly searching for information outside of like some sources you might remember or know. This is why you should have a rigorous, someone like that's doing work like LonerBox should have a rigorous AI system, if you know how to use the tool, that's grounded in rigorous epistemic standards like empiricism and science as a way of knowing. I know you guys hear me on this sermon time and time again, but that will cause LonerBox not to make this mistake here. Even if he does like the kind of more traditional research that he does regularly, double check the work, run a quick audit on it. And if he did, all of this information would come up. And he could, then he would be delivering. There wouldn't be anything misleading here. And then also the other thing of like that kind of reasoning or that kind of argumentation or rationale pointing to, these other wars and proportionality and like, well, I mean, there isn't that many. Like, don't do that. Let's go to 3857. 3850. There we go.
Daniela Weiss. Daniela.
Want to go back.
אבל בוא נאמר...
תעשי את זה, אני מכיר אותך קצת, תעשי את זה אם תוכלי.
יכול להיות, אבל בוא נאמר ככה, הצבא צריך לגמור, כמו שעבד בצפון, הוא צריך לעבוד בדרום, ולהשאיר את עזה ללא ערבים, ולהקים התיישבות יהודית בכל חבל עזה. כאשר אומרים ביישובי העוטף שרוצים לראות את הים, זאת אומרת, כדי לראות את הים צריך שלא יהיו לא בתים.
שאני מבין במקורות שלנו, עם הפראים האלה לא היה שלום, אין שלום ולא יהיה שלום. לא שאני לא רוצה שלום, גם אני רוצה שלום. ארץ זה שייכת אך ורק לעם ישראל, וכל עזה וכל לבנון, כל זה צריכים לשאוף לנקות את הארץ מרוכבי הגמלים.
I don't care about Gaza. I literally don't care. For all I care, they can go out and to swim in the sea.
אנחנו מטילים מצור מוחלט על העיר עזה.
Okay, we'll go to the Gallant quote in a second. So this is about settling Gaza, basically. Okay. What percentage of Israelis support? I think the number was, where's the one about settlements? Did they speak about, was it about, oh, here. Is it this survey? Yeah. Okay. Wait, where's settling? 19%. Daniela, Weiss, and Ben-Gvir are all of Israel, apparently. 10%. Why not look at polling, which shows only 19% of Israelis wanted to reestablish settlements in Gaza? Polling. Dave is doing the equivalent of using memory clips of Hamas leaders and applying them to all of Palestine. It's 22%. Sorry,
well, you don't know that Dave's doing that.
Palestinians are 20% of Israel's population. I don't know why people deny their existence. They're there. Sorry, fuck you. And they are politically and ideologically different from Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza. I don't know why you would just say Israeli Jews. I thought we were supposed to say Israelis, not Jews, not Israeli Jews, right? Fuck. All of Palestine. Not very scientific, right?
Okay, LonerBox. So, this quote, only 19% of Israelis wanted to reestablish settlements in Gaza. That's unsupported, and he's likely just mistaken here. So the finding, the transcript does not identify the poll itself. I didn't hear him identify the poll. Majority, let's see. It might be just on the screen. A majority, 61% public, returning. IDF. I can't see it on the screen. Divided opinions. Hostage likelihood. We're seeing some data here. That's why I have screenshot technology. Screenshot. Everyone likes it. Screenshot. Why can't I add a oh, that's annoying. I just want to give him my best shot at analysis here. Ooh, that's the tasty thing for later. So the prominent 19% figure in the cited Pew survey, I guess it's a Pew survey, referred to Jewish Israelis who believed peaceful coexistence with a Palestinian state was possible, not supported for resettling Gaza. The other surveys asked who should govern Gaza or whether Israel should retain control, which are different questions. So the correction here would be, this figure should not be used without the exact poll, date, population, wording, and response options. I'm going to see, okay, you're right. My answer on this was incorrect. Another, this is why we do this, by the way. Take the screenshots. 90% believes annexing Gaza. So LonerBox's statement that only 19% of Israelis wanted to reestablish settlements in Gaza has a genuine polling basis. Revised rating mostly true and qualified. So yeah, we just had to check that. My original audit came up that this is unsupported, but once it was provided the image, yeah, no, it checks out. Good stuff, LonerBox. Good stuff. 4103.
Quote. It's actually quite good having all of these in one place. Is there a longer transcript of that entire bit? A congressional record? Said Hamas in this clip. Where is that? The translations are shit and dishonest. Well, he's saying Gaza City, isn't he? Gallant human animals, full quote. Is there any clip here that's not 20 seconds long? Oh, the next one.
מוחלט על העיר עזה. אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור.
Yes. On October 9th, Gallant said they would impose a total siege on Gaza City with no food, water, etc. Did he actually do that though? The water supply. Okay. Let me see. Oh, here. Second. Okay. 2 of the 3 water supply pipe Israel pipelines Gaza were reopened. How much of Gaza's water came from these pipelines? Was it like 10% or 9% or less? Was it more or less than 10%? Were reopened before the end of the month, and the third, which was damaged on October 7th.
You, just you, building your app on base 44.
I promise I will turn on YouTube Premium.
Reopened
tomorrow.
Repaired, and reopened later. Okay, for the end of the month. How much of Gaza's water came? I think it was about 10, or 13%. Okay, yeah, that's right. Where does it say this? Oh, okay.
I wonder what source he's using off the screen. Maybe he is using a sophisticated LLM.
No, wait, the remain. Oh, okay. Is it remaining? 10. Okay. Right, is he? Leaving aside that these 3 pipelines made up 10% of Gaza's water supply. What did Gaza say about aid trucks? Okay, let's see. UF Gallant was actually one of the ones who was pushing for more aid trucks to go into Gaza, not less. Where are we? Where did Gallant say this? Oh, I think I remember. It's here. Oh, it's here. Yeah, here. The rest of the government increase truck imports to Gaza. He once said it should go up to over 500. This is a wild one. Even after the UN relief chief said around 100 were required to feed all of Gaza, was only 100. People don't know this. On October 19th, fucking 500 trucks, wankers. The relief chief of the UN was actually already saying 100 trucks a day on October 19th. And this is the guy whose job it was to actually make sure that the strip was being fed, or make sure that people knew how many trucks needed to go in. So, 100. This is probably one of the reasons Gallant was dropped.
Then, quote, only 10% suggests. Gallant's April 2024 call for more than 500 trucks came 6 months after he announced a complete siege and after intense U.S. pressure. The UN's October 2023 target of 100 aid trucks per day was an emergency minimum ramp up, not a finding that 100 trucks were sufficient to feed all Gaza. So the correction here, the pipeline percentage and later pro-aid statements do not erase the initial siege or the broader collapse of water and aid systems. So this is rated, I think, mixed or misleading. Yeah, sorry about that, folks. I think I had a blip on my internet for some reason. There might be a storm coming in. Just FYI, here in Oaxaca, Mexico, we get some insane storms. We get earthquakes here too, but for some reason I can't feel them. People are always like, we had an earthquake. Did you feel that? No. Probably my nervous system. We're back. Don't worry. I'm not going anywhere. Yo, welcome. Smash that like button. It takes like literally half a second. If it takes longer than that, get out of here. Okay, so that one I'm rating mixed or misleading. Ooh, a couple false claims here. Let's go to those next. 5321. You're talking about it 5320.
Honey, I traded scrap metal for high-protein space bars.
While you were trading garbage for ration bars, my king was feeding me Wagyu printed from thin air.
How dare a good-for-nothing who doesn't even have food deserve...
Jesus.
All of Lebanon must burn. Are you fucking listening?
Are you
All
fucking
of
listening?
Lebanon must burn. This is not Israel-occupied Palestine.
I like that lighthearted posture from LonerBox. He generally does have a good lighthearted posture, which is going to cause him to remain cognitively flexible, playful, positive, optimistic in this process. That's great. Lightheartedness is a superpower, especially in the war of ideas. Okay.
This is a sovereign nation with territory that Israel has lusted after since its inception, and which it is currently successfully stealing. But back to Gaza, Israeli military...
They've just made a deal with the government to start transferring territory back. It's whatever. I can't. They've lusted after this place for so long. So long. And somehow not one settlement has ever been built in Lebanon by Israel. Crazy.
Military official Eliyahu Yassian says there is no population in Gaza. There are 2.5 million terrorists. There is no meaning to giving them warning missiles. Israeli politician...
But they do give them warnings. They do give them warnings. They do. That's why whatever 80-90% of the buildings have been destroyed, but only 3% of the people, meaning the buildings were empty when they were hit, for the most part. What?
Ooh.
Moshe Feiglin...
Okay, we have a false claim here, false statement, false information from LonerBox. 90% of the buildings, this is what was said, have been destroyed, but only 3% of the people, meaning the buildings were empty when they were hit for the most part. The finding here is the inference is invalid. Buildings and people are not comparable denominators. One strike can damage many structures without killing every occupant. Evacuation, timing, partial damage, rescue, injuries, and repeated strikes all matter. Quote, damaged or destroyed also does not mean every building was flattened. So the correction here for LonerBox, high structural destruction with a lower population fatality percentage does not prove that most targeted buildings were empty or that targeting was lawful. Oh, come on, Trav. You know what he meant. Someone said Oaxaca also has the best cheese. Yeah. Quesillo. We have it like every second day. I love it. But the fruit here, Oh, sapote negro, the mangoes. You wouldn't believe, like, the beautiful kinds of fruit, like, you know, dragon fruit, pitahaya, we call it here, unlimited and so cheap, so affordable. Oh, if you're a fruit lover, you got to come visit me down in Oaxaca, in mi casa. I know my accent really sad. No, I can do a better accent than that. Zorro fought for the people. No, that's not more Russian.
States outright that Hamas is not the enemy. It's every child in Gaza. Every child, toddlers, babies. Babies are terrorists. Anyone who would say this is a sadist.
Dave's cadence in this video, like, I swear I hear it in my sleep. Anyone who would say this is a sadistic beep. Okay.
Like, what the fuck is the context of this interview? Who is this person?
He's right to question the context, because it kind of just came out of nowhere.
מה לא יורד רותם? את לא מבינה, אני מנסה כבר עם סבון. מה לא יורד רותם? הדם מהידיים. יש לי דם על הידיים, אני לא יודעת מה לעשות.
Of course, this is a drop in the bucket. Countless children in Gaza have been targeted and executed by snipers. There are so many accounts from both local and international doctors who received child after child with a single precise bullet wound to the head. Again, soldiers state out.
Okay. This was from that organization, from that open letter with the 99 doctors who claimed that they were seeing this every single day. Let's see.
¿Batallas con ronquidos o volteas la almohada toda la noche? Está diseñada para encargarse de todo eso. A diferencia de la...
People don't really mention, for one, that that most of these doctors came from a single organization. It was called PAMA, Palestinian American Medical something. Association, was it? It initially was actually just one open letter. It was one from two people. And they kind of just like repeated the same open letter and just kept adding to it throughout the conflict. So they made this one and then repeated it again with 45 doctors and then with 99. These guys, Perlmutter and Sidwa, were there for a total of 2 weeks. This is April 5th. I think they wrote this letter. When did they leave? I think they left on April 8th. I think so. Yeah. Yeah, Perlmutter was there till April 8th. So on April 5th, they wrote this open letter. What's interesting about this first letter is they don't say that they saw people with sniper shots every single day. They mentioned two people, one shot in the head, one shot in the chest. Although Perlmutter was taking pictures of bullets at the time, for some reason, he didn't like show the bullets for these ones. But again, I don't really doubt that it happened. Why he says these shots definitely came from the best trained marksman in the world, I have no idea. He doesn't really say. And it was only after they arrived back in America, I think they both live in America, where they took that 2 number and turned it into 13. There's like a whole timeline here where he's challenged on this in an interview as well, the Feroz Sidwa guy. Because I'm thinking, like, if you're seeing, in any war zone, if you're seeing preteens who are getting killed with sniper rounds once a day, you're going to talk about that. You're going to talk, that's like the biggest, that's like the most important thing you're going to see. Perlmutter or Sidwa, we're not talking about that at all when they were here. They mentioned these 2, but they don't mention 13. And from the health ministry's numbers, there's no crazy number of deaths like in this hospital after April 5th. Like, and the more you look at the way that they push these claims, like it just gets less and less believable. So here,
we might be starting to paint a bit of a conspiracy theory here, right? Let's not go down that road.
Where was Perlmutter interviewed? Yeah, here. He kept saying this: 70% of our patients are children. Doctor in Gaza here. surgeon in Gaza. Here in Democracy Now!, he went further and said that 70 to 75% of the people that he operated on were elementary school age or younger. And Sidwa has said in interviews that in this hospital, there were 2 rooms for operating. It's not like they had like a children's room and another one. It was just like 2, and people were spread across both of them. Perlmutter said 70 to 75% of the people they operated on were school age, elementary school age or younger. So 70 to 75% of people are preteens in this hospital, apparently. The problem is that the health ministry was releasing emergency reports for several individual days when these guys were there. And their demographic split, if the archive is working, thank you, their demographic split is just not what Perlmutter says it is. It's not even close. Yeah, so you can see it here, European hospital, and you can see my notes as well, for making it easier. So from the European hospital, and this is on March 23rd, which is just before they arrive at the hospital. The European hospital has 246 children. It says 238 women and 677 men, which is very different from 70% preteen. This is 21% children, and this includes all the way up to the age of...
Are you wondering how much it will cost you to start up a company in Dubai or anywhere in the UAE? Check
17, like just before 18. So, and when they were in the hospital from April 1st,
I promise I'm getting YouTube Premium tomorrow.
And I think they left on April 8th. The cumulative total stays about the same, 21%. Goes up to 30 here, but again, this is a slightly odd one because the number jumps very suddenly and like randomly with no explanation. And the number of men decreases, so that doesn't really make any sense. But if you look at the daily deaths, when they're there, so Perlmutter is in the European hospital up until April 8th. So if you look at the dailies here, 2 deaths are recorded on March 27th, 1 man, 1 child. Injuries, mostly men, 1 child. 1 man, 1 child. Injuries, mostly men. Again, 7 men, 5 women, 2 children. 12 men, 5 women, 5 children. There's not a single day where this 70% preteen ever comes up.
There is a conflation, though, here, because Perlmutter's claim concerned the subset of patients he personally operated on, right? That was the claim.
Up ever. The last April 5th and April 7th, it's 4 men died and 2 men died. And the injuries are mostly men as well.
LonerBox is making the mistake of comparing this with all recorded deaths, injuries, or all hospital patients. That's a mistake.
So the person who started this open letter, Perlmutter, he's a liar. He's just there's no other explanation. He's just lied. He just made up fabricated the number of kids that he saw that were killed, let alone shot, because any other medical research on Gaza basically shows that like the overwhelming majority of deaths in the Strip are from airstrikes, not from bullets.
This is a bad rebuttal. It's got major glaring logical problems. So yeah, this claim he just made it up, fabricated the number of kids that he saw. Perlmutter's claim concerned the subset of patients he personally operated on. LonerBox compares it with all recorded deaths, injuries, or all hospital patients. I need to listen to this, go back a little bit, one more time. Sorry.
Just not what Perlmutter says it is. It's not even preschool age or younger. So Democracy Now!, he went further and said that 70 to 75 people don't really mention, for one. And they kind of just like repeated the same open letter. People don't really mention, for one, that that most of these doctors came from a single organization. It was called PAMA, Palestinian American Medical something Association, was it? It initially was actually just one open letter. It was one from 2 people And they kind of just like repeated the same open letter and just kept adding to it throughout the conflict. So they made this one and then repeated it again with 45 doctors and then with 99. These guys, Perlmutter and Sidwell, were there for a total of 2 weeks. This is April 5th. I think they wrote this letter. When did they leave? I think they left on April 8th. I think so. Yeah. Yeah, Perlmutter was there till April 8th. So on April 5th, they wrote this open letter. What's interesting about this first letter is they don't say that they saw people with sniper shots every single day. They mentioned 2 people, one shot in the head, one shot in the chest. Although Perlmutter was taking pictures of bullets at the time, for some reason, he didn't like show the bullets for these ones. But again, I don't really doubt that it happened. Why he says these shots definitely came from the best trained marksman in the world, I have no idea. He doesn't really say. And it was only after they arrived back in America, I think they both live in America, where they took that 2 number and turned it into 13. There's like a whole timeline here where he's challenged on this in an interview as well, the Feroz Sidwa guy. Because I'm thinking, like, if you're seeing, in any war zone, if you're seeing preteens who are getting killed with sniper rounds once a day, you're going to talk about that. You're going to talk, that's like the most important thing you're going to see. Perlmutter or Sidwa were not talking about that at all when they were here. They mentioned these 2, but they don't mention 13. And from the health ministry's numbers, there's no crazy number of deaths like in this hospital after April 5th. Like, and the more you look at the way that they push these claims, like it just gets less and less believable. So here, where was Perlmutter interviewed?
This is what I want to see here.
He kept saying this: 70% of our patients are children.
Again, Perlmutter's claim concerned the subset of patients he personally operated on. Yeah, 70% of our population epidemiology, but LonerBox does not establish that it was invented, so that doesn't get demonstrated. I might have lost you guys again for a second. There's something going on with the internet. Chitters says, okay, I think I got my screen back. Sorry, 1 second. I just lost you guys for a second there. Something's going on with internet tonight. Wow. I don't know if it's YouTube or what's going on here. We back. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. So Chitter says our patients implies the hospital patients, not just his. No. When a surgeon says our patients today, it's reasonable that to suggest that they're meaning the patients that them and their medical team dealt with. Yeah, no, I don't see that as a justification. Yeah, so I think that was a bad statistical rebuttal, a denominator mismatch, unsupported. So LonerBox did not establish that it was invented, and it was quite a lot of quite the certainty posture in the way he in the claim
doctor
he made
in
at the end here.
Gaza. And Sidwa has said in interviews that preschool age or younger. So 70 to 75% of the European hospital, and there's not a Gaza basically shows that like the overwhelming majority of deaths in the strip are from airstrikes, not from bullets, and headshots are even more rare. And this has just never been shown. Yeah, this was a study here where they studied like a sample of casualties. But it was the same. It's always the same thing. It's always the majority are airstrikes. About 3% of the injuries were gunshots, or no, 3% were head wounds with gunshots with head wounds. There's just not
Sorry, I missed
Perlmutter. They left on April 8th. There's not a single day where this 70% preteen ever comes up, ever. The last April 5th and April 7th, it's 4 men died and 2 men died. And the injuries are mostly men as well.
Yeah, this isn't a problem if you don't presuppose that they're talking about, all recorded deaths, injuries, or all hospital patients. That's the inferential problem here.
So the person who started this open letter, Perlmutter, he's a liar. He's just there's no other explanation. He's just lied. He just made up fabricated the number of kids that he saw that were killed.
So instead of moving to like that this person's a liar, he fabricated it, you want to examine where you might be misinterpreting the information or misapplying your evidence. Sometimes it's a lot more simple. I think the more likely scenario here is that they were referencing their caseload, the amount of young patients that they had. Yeah, and LonerBox does not establish that it was in fact invented.
Alone shot, because any other medical research on Gaza basically shows that like the overwhelming majority of deaths in the strip are from airstrikes, not from bullets, and headshots are even more rare. And this has just never been shown. Yeah, this was a study here where they studied like a sample.
So what he's doing is he's trying to confirm this conclusion here. You want to look at the small details as like you might have just misinterpreted the claim that's being made. And sometimes what can happen if a doctor makes a claim like this, people can start interpreting that to mean like, oh, so you're saying that like the hospital is filled with the overwhelming majority children. I don't know how, if people were saying that or they were responding to it, but yeah, I just think it hasn't been established that this was invented, and it seems like LonerBox is convinced of that. Let's go to 105.55.
But it was the same. It's always the same thing. It's always the majority are airstrikes. About 3% of the injuries were gunshots.
Yeah, we shouldn't be using the terms always, forever, these kinds of absolutist terms.
Or no, 3% were head wounds with gunshots with head wounds. This is just not like anywhere near the numbers that they were suggesting, because if you have 99 doctors who are all saying that they saw on the daily kids that were shot in the preteens, again, who were shot in the head and chest, that's like the number, which should be thousands. It should be thousands of people with this. To this day, I think there have been the couple of photos from the New York Times. There's been a couple of photos from the New York Times that were where the x-rays were shown and they were confirmed, and they're mentioned in the first open letter from Perlmutter and Sidwa. The rest of it is all just testimony from doctors who signed this letter. But the health ministry's numbers don't confirm it. They don't even show anything close to that. This is a story that just got completely Because again, the idea that there would be soldiers in the IDF who have gone and decided to shoot kids in the head, that bit is not unbelievable. That bit is easily believable, right? The question is whether or not this was any kind of like broad scale systematic targeting of children with sniper rifles, but that's just not been shown. And the people who have put forward these numbers and these proportions they're contradicting the health ministry's own emergency reports. They're contradicting just data that came out of the hospitals. Because this hospital that Perlmutter and Feroz Sidwa were working in very clearly shows that the majority of people who were getting killed here and injured were men. A very, very clear majority. So, and children were underrepresented because children in the Gaza Strip make up 50% of the population. And in these hospitals, it's 21. And that would include also teens and people who are older, because the older teenagers were more likely to die in Gaza than the younger ones. So, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, this is the one claim that people always fucking bring at my door as well. But it's like, it's just never been proven. Even that BBC investigation that they talk about, or that he's linked here.
Many accounts from both.
This BBC investigation, like as part of their methodology, they even say it included just asking doctors. But I'm sorry, but if you're asking doctors who are so obviously lying about these numbers, because again, I don't even know why.
No, there was a big leap there. How do we know they're obviously lying about these numbers?
They wouldn't, because they feel like they have a righteous cause and everything else. It's already been the case that these doctors also said there was no Hamas in this hospital, even though Mohammed Sinwar died in this hospital in a tunnel that was right outside the front door of it.
Okay, he's trying to make like a lying doctor's conspiracy claim here. So LonerBox's claim is doctors who are so obviously lying about these numbers. So the 99-person letter included physicians, surgeons, nurses, nurse practitioners, and midwives who collectively reported 254 weeks in Gaza and worked through multiple NGOs and WHO-linked missions. Their testimony does not by itself prove a systematic Israeli policy of shooting children, of course, which I think was a correct conclusion, but LonerBox supplies no evidence that the signatories were obviously lying. Treat the letter, the correction here is treat the letter as a substantial body of eyewitness testimony that requires corroboration and case level analysis, not as proof of a universal policy and not as a proven fraud. Yeah, in situations like this, I think the wise epistemic position is to say, not that it's obvious that they were lying, but it seems like more needs to be investigated here, because there's, someone like LonerBox is saying there's a discrepancy between some of the numbers he's seeing reported based on what this 99-person letter is reporting. That doesn't mean they are the ones necessarily lying. So, yeah, one thing does not follow the other, right? Well, I'm not, I will give some critique on language and things sometime from like a normative perspective, but when the logic does not click, like what I just pointed out, we're dealing with very specific claims, right? It's not that the entirety of LonerBox's pontification on this is like out to lunch. He's creating a hypothesis that perhaps should be investigated, but that doesn't mean he's justified in concluding that the doctors are obviously lying, right? One thing does not follow the other. That's just a logical mistake. Someone says, am I off base? I can see your reasoning, but he's specific about gunshot wound victims being majority kids, not that lots of kids aren't in the hospital. Yeah, I mean, it all, I'm not saying like that there aren't reasonable things to be adjudicated here. I'm not saying that, but that doesn't give you license. It shouldn't give you license to believe doctors who are so obviously lying about these numbers. That shouldn't be in your mind. You should think that, like, there seems to be something suspicious here. I have this hypothesis. I wonder if this has been investigated. If it hasn't, then I think it should be investigated. Then you remain agnostic on the case, right? You don't put your stake in the ground and say, well, because of all of these, because of this hypothesis I've created, that means that the doctors are obviously lying. There's a claim coming up here. 1-6. Yeah. Oh, we already went through that. So there was also the claim that any kind of broad-scale systematic targeting of children with sniper rifles has just not been shown. So this is what I would consider to be a mixed claim. So the narrow claim is fair, of course. Like any kind of broad-scale systematic targeting of children with sniper rifles has just not been shown. Publicly available evidence did not establish a universal or centrally ordered policy of sniping children. But LonerBox understates the evidence for repeated shootings. A later BBC investigation documented 168 child shooting cases with medical records including 95 head or chest wounds plus witness and clinician evidence. So the person who was just asking that question, right? We're clearing it up here. So the responsible thing to do, and I don't know if LonerBox is done on this issue. Maybe he brings this up, but the idea that any kind of broad-scale systematic targeting of children with sniper rifles has not been shown. Broad scale is 168 child shooting cases with medical records, including 95 head or chest wounds, plus witness and clinician evidence. Is that enough to constitute calling it broad scale systematic targeting? That's why this is mixed, right? But it should be you want to state. You don't want to just count the hits. You want to count the misses, with regards to your positivity and negativity biases. So providing this important information here is epistemically responsible. That the BBC investigation has documented 168 child shooting. Now, again, just because the BBC investigation documented 168 child shooting doesn't mean that that's absolutely correct, or that doesn't need to be adjudicated. But I think it is important information to include in the record. Again, from an epistemic perspective, if you care about correspondence criteria of truth, that is, if you want to be objectively correct about truth, that's what correspondence criteria has to do with in philosophy. From that, empiricism is born. Science as a way of knowing is born. If you want to get the most high resolution picture you can, you want to try and read into the record, into your own record, the things that might contradict your current belief, or maybe maybe it's reasonable to accept that if it is the case that the BBC investigation of documented 168 child shooting cases with medical records, that actually did occur, which it includes 95 headshots or chest wounds, plus witnesses and clinician evidence. There is already a collection of evidence there that should be weighed into one's perspective. Again, it doesn't mean that all those numbers are absolute or aren't worthy of audit themselves. So the correction here would be documented child shootings are real and numerous. According to the BBC investigation findings, the leap to a general command policy, of course, remains unproven. So that part is not proven, that there's some kind of general command policy to snipe children in the head and in the chest. All right. Okay, now we're going to go to 118.
Family report.
Thanks for being with me,
Sphinx
everyone. I really
Triangulum 2
appreciate
is a
that.
desktop NMR quant.
And again, whenever I'm doing a fact check like this, it's not a it's not a dunk on the person I'm doing a fact check on. I just really think it's important for us to get clear, concise information out there. And we all make mistakes. If anyone fact checked any of my work, you're going to find mistakes. But I think it's a healthy thing for us to do in this culture, in the culture of the war of ideas, in culture in general, but specifically in this culture where we're doing things that are going to be providing examples for hundreds, thousands, millions of people. Right?
Quantum computer design.
Reports as well. So they're still going to count you even if they can't find your body. Second of all, people under the rubble. This claim came from not from the health ministry, but from the government media office. The same media office that was grossly inflating the number of women and children who were dying. And to the point that it was in 2024 where the health ministry actually stopped using their data. They're the same people who said that there's actually 10,000 people under the rubble. Those are the same people. The number of people actually under the rubble was less than 1,000, it turned out, when Hamas actually, or when the government actually had the time to go and find the bodies or to report the people who were missing long enough to make it like obvious where they died. But the scientists, vaporized bodies.
That will never be recovered. The countless bodies with limbs zip tied.
So there was the actual number under the rubble is probably less than 1,000 claim there. That's another false claim by LonerBox. So this is strongly contradicted by later recovery data and current estimates. We actually went through this when we went through the long fact check, 18 hours of fact checking of Dave Farina's video. So yeah, this is strongly contradicted by later recovery data and current estimates. Reuters and AP reported in 2026 that roughly 8,000 people were believed to remain under rubble. A single 2023 strike site recently yielded 112 bodies after years of inaccessibility, with dozens from that family cluster still missing. So yeah, I mean, let's see if he if LonerBox substantiates why he believes the less than 1,000
and shoved into mass graves with dirt bulldozed on top of them, often still alive, shrieking as they get their last glimpse of daylight. There is no way for me to physically illustrate for you the true extent of this genocide. And that brings us to the main point of this video.
Oh, not this guy. Well, if we're going on to Destiny now, we can maybe no, but it's not. It's still just okay. It's still just war claims. Let me see. Rubble. Oh, it's in the picture, so you can't control F it. Where is it where they say 11,000? Surely I can see that. Fatalities, food insecurity, and nutrition. Where is it? They mentioned rubble here. Here? Oh shit. 1 second. Is it here? Wait, why is that?
I like this. Like showing the research, showing the work. Great epistemic posture. Love it.
Not opening. What the fuck? Oh, this is a weird link. This is a dud. Oh, it is. February 4th. Okay. Apparently it's here. They didn't retroactively remove this because these are daily updates. That would be very, very, very sneaky of them. Am I fucking blind? Where the fuck does it talk about rubble? Oh, here. They say here, more than 10,000 people reported missing under the rubble. Source, Palestinian civil defense. That's on February 4th, okay? When you get to the 11th, it just disappears. Because again, the health ministry stopped using information from the other institutions in Gaza after they realized that they were just kind of speaking shit. Like that's what happened. From February 11th onwards, these OCA reports, they stopped using that. Probably because the health ministry stopped using it as well.
Video. Dickheads like Destiny deny the fact that Israel is committing genocide. This is beyond comprehension. Any honest person with the courage to look can instantly see what has been going on in Gaza.
So I'm going to further adjudicate this rubble thing. I'm curious. I want a little more detail on the Reuters and AP report in 2026 that roughly 8,000 people were believed. Thanks for hanging out, folks. Really appreciate it. Yeah, we'll find the Reuters source and we'll take a look. I would like to see. I think a more precise claim, the number, LonerBox, the number of people actually under the rubble was less than 1,000. That turned out when Hamas, when is this? 118. Yeah, that turned out when Hamas actually, or when the government actually had the time to go and find the bodies or to report the people who were missing long enough to make it obvious where they died. Had the time to go and find the bodies or to report the people who were missing long enough to make it obvious where they died. But yeah, it's false. The claim was already contradicted by available evidence before LonerBox's August 1st, 2026 video, which was 3 days ago. In February 2026, the Associated Press reported that Gaza's health ministry estimated approximately 8,000 people remain beneath rubble. AP also reported that more than 700 bodies had already been recovered following the ceasefire and described recovery work as severely constrained by 61 million tons of debris, lack of machinery, and Israeli control over much of Gaza. As of August 4th, AP reports that relatives have formally reported at least 7,400 people as remaining beneath rubble, with the ministry's records director saying the real number may be higher because entire families were sometimes killed without surviving relatives to file reports. Reuters likewise reports that approximately 8,000 people are believed to remain under rubble. Let me take a look at Reuters. Around half the dead were previously recovered and buried, but 153 bodies had remained under the rubble until now. Nearly three years later, a recovery team of 40 workers spent 17 days painstakingly combing the wreckage and brought out remains identified as belonging to 112 of those missing victims. A cluster of neighbors and surviving members of the clan gathered on Tuesday on a flattened lot of demolished ruins, where the remains were laid out for what Palestinian authorities described as the largest mass funeral of the Gaza war. Okay. Reuters was unable to locate an Israeli military statement from November 2023 giving Israel's account of the strike. Okay. According to Palestinian health authorities, more than 73,000 Palestinians are confirmed to have died in the Israeli-Gaza war. Most of the deaths were documented when bodies were brought to morgues and buried, but around 8,000 more are believed to lie beneath the rubble. I keep seeing that 8,000 are believed to be. So LonerBox presented the figure of less than 1,000. As an established retrospective result, but he supplied no reliable accounting demonstrating that fewer than 1,000 bodies remain beneath rubble. Evidence available before his video placed the estimate around 8,000. Subsequent recoveries and current reporting continue to support a figure in the range of 7,400 to 8,000. The precise number cannot presently be verified, and reported missing figures should not automatically be treated as confirmed deaths, of course. Nevertheless, the evidence strongly contradicts LonerBox's categorical claim that the number had been established as below 1,000. So the substantive verdict stays the same, but the document must replace the inaccurate quotation and make clear that the 8,000 estimate predated LonerBox's video rather than relying on reporting published afterward. So something I want to know is, I want to know more about this estimate. How exactly is the come to? Like to do a little more diving into this, a little more. Someone say, yeah, I only see estimates in a recent story about 100 bodies found in Gaza City. Yeah, we'll take a look at it right now, right here. We'll get the goods on it. Once we finish with LonerBox here, I'll also provide, man, they should allow creators on YouTube to put images in the description. Oh man, I would love that. I want to open this so I can provide all of the source notes for this video, because people are going to want to know where we're sourcing this fact checking from. YouTube. I need to get into the video. Boom, boom, boom. Sweet. So the source notes for anyone, if they get in touch with LonerBox, if he wants to respond, are in the video description. I can provide that in a different format as well, if that's better for him. But he can feel free to reach out to me too if he wants any kind of extra information or about how I came to this. So the 8,000 figure is not a result of a published statistical calculation based on rubble volume. Wait, where am I? based on rubble volume, destroyed buildings, or an assumed number of occupants per structure. It is principally an administrative missing person estimate assembled from reports submitted by relatives and cases classified as people believed to have been inside destroyed buildings and not recovered. How the figure appears to have been constructed. Families report named individuals. Yeah, okay, that part makes sense. Gaza's health ministry maintains an online system for people not already recorded through hospitals. The form requests whether the person is being reported as dead, missing, or a natural death, national ID number and full name, date of birth, sex and government, date and government of disappearance, burial status, and whether a hospital was previously notified, the reporting relative's ID, name, phone number, and relationship, the identifying information of 2 additional people acting as identifiers or witnesses, a judicial committee through which the report can be processed. This is therefore more structured than an anonymous estimate or a general assertion from the government media office. The ministry separates, quote, believed under rubble from other missing people. In October 2025, the health ministry's records director told AP that about 6,000 named people have been reported by relatives as still buried beneath rubble. Oh, that's so tragic. I hate hearing that. A separate 3,600 people were reported missing with unknown fates. Those later cases would include detention, separation, unidentified burial, or other explanations. Only slightly more than 200 of the unknown fate cases had been investigated. The ICRC separately had at least 7,000 unresolved tracing cases, expressly excluding people already believed buried beneath rubble. These databases should not simply be added together because they use different systems and may contain overlap. The list is updated as cases are added or resolved. By February 2026, AP reported that the ministry's under rubble figure had risen to approximately 8,000, while more than 700 bodies had reportedly been recovered since October ceasefire. So yeah, the most likely administrative relationship, current unresolved under rubble reports equals previous reports plus newly submitted reclassified cases, recovered or otherwise resolved cases. That is an inference from the reporting sequence. The ministry was not publicly released, or the ministry has not publicly released a complete case level data set or a reproducible audit explaining precisely how 6,000 became 8,000 despite hundreds of recoveries. Yeah, obviously the approximate 8,000 doesn't mean exactly 8,000 are missing. Is this a normal method with regards to body count, bodies being trapped under rubble? So yes, as the beginning of a missing person investigation, this is a normal method. No, as a final confirmed body count. Interpol's standard disaster victim identification process begins by creating an ante-mortem missing person list from reports by families, relatives, friends, passenger manifests, or comparable sources. Investigators then collect names, photographs, medical and dental information, DNA reference, samples, clothing, jewelry, distinguishing marks, and information about the person's last known location. The full process has 4 central stages: scene investigation, search, map, and recover human remains and associated property, post-mortem examination, document remains using DNA, fingerprints, dentistry, medical imaging, and other evidence. Antemortem collection. Build detailed files on missing people from families and records. Reconciliation. Compare recovered remains with missing persons files and formally establish identities. Interpol explicitly warns that visual recognition or circumstantial information alone is unreliable. Positive identification normally requires DNA, dental comparison, fingerprints, or a sufficiently strong combination of evidence. So Gaza's list resembles the antemortem phase of a normal DVI investigation. The major problem is that the later phases, systematic excavation, forensic examination, DNA testing, and reconciliation remain severely incomplete. And of course, the strongest defensible wording is not that there are definitely 8,000 bodies under the rubble. It is that Gaza's health ministry reported approximately 7,400, 8,000 unresolved, predominantly named cases of people believed by relatives and authorities to remain beneath rubble. The figure is based mainly on missing person reports rather than completed recovery or forensic identification, and its precise accuracy cannot currently be established. For LonerBox claim, LonerBox asserted that it had turned out that fewer than 1,000 people were beneath rubble. He did not provide a case list, official reconciliation, recovery data, or other evidence establishing that result. Thousands of named family reports, continuing large-scale recoveries, and the absence of a completed forensic accounting weigh strongly against his categorical claim. However, the commonly cited 7,400 to 8,000 figure is itself an unresolved missing person estimate, not a confirmed count of recovered or independently verified bodies. Now, this is a very morbid way to look at it, but at this stage, it would be a very, very unfounded bad bet for LonerBox to place a bet that, you know, in, let's say, 20 years, when the rubble is cleared, remains have been processed, it would be a really bad bet to place right now based on what's available, to say that, you know, that fewer than 1,000 people are beneath the rubble. Yeah, he might clarify.
Gaza for nearly 3 years now.
With the courage, yes. No one else has the courage to say, fuck Israel.
It is objectively genocide. Anyone who wants to complain about how woefully unqualified I am to make that assessment, they can shut their dumb fuck faces, because you don't have to take my word for it. Every single human rights organization in the entire world has labeled this a genocide. Let me play a short clip from Mehdi Hassan, since he will be able to get this point across quite succinctly.
Gaza has been cut off from the world for almost 3 years and subjected to war crimes.
Now, I don't think I can state all of Dave's misinformation or just blatant non-factual claims in this video that's being analyzed in 60 seconds. But I'm planning, once we get through this, I have this like rapid fire misinformation sheet of Dave's that I wanted to record for the purposes of releasing a video with all the misinformation in a row. And I'm just going to try to like get it out of my system as quickly as I could for the video.
Ethnic cleansing, genocide. But if you say that, Israel and its supporters will accuse you of lying, of being anti-Semitic, of perpetrating a blood libel. So let me debunk this argument in less than 60 seconds by asking one very simple question. Start the clock. Do you believe Benjamin Netanyahu, Itamar Ben-Gvir, and Bezalel Smotrich about what's been happening in Gaza, or do you believe the UN Independent Commission of Inquiry, the UN Special Committee, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, the UN Special Rapporteur for the Occupied Palestinian Territories, 14 other UN Special Rapporteurs, the former UN Humanitarian Chief, UNICEF, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Bet Salem, Gisha, Physicians for Human Rights Israel, Doctors Without Borders, Oxfam, Save the Children, Christian Aid, Action Aid, the NGO Air Wars, the NGO Action on Armed Violence, the International Association of Genocide Scholars, and its President Melanie O'Brien, the editor of the Journal of Genocide Research, Dirk Moses, the author of the book What is Genocide, Martin Shaw, the leading Israeli Holocaust scholars, Omar Bartov, Amos Goldberg, Daniel Blattman, Raz Siegel, Shmuel Lederman, the Norwegian Refugee Council, the Danish...
By the way, this is like a 60-second black and white fallacy. But more precisely, it's not just Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government on that other side, as we demonstrated in our fact check that we did, which was 18 hours, by the way. There are other groups that don't believe genocide has been demonstrated, at least yet.
Refugee Council, Refugees International, the International Rescue...
One day, if I ever had the time, you would do like a battle rap thing for all of these different organizations and to show how fucking mental some of them are. Like Amnesty International, who literally admitted that they wanted to hold back on doing a report on October 7th because of the political implications of exposing the extent of Hamas, or signing off on the narrative on the extent of Hamas's war crimes.
We'll be able to get
the UN Special Rapporteur for the Palestinian Territories, fucking Albanese, who just tweets out every single fucking mad claim about the inflated death tolls that she can get her hands on, who once claimed that more under fives had died in Gaza than actually ever existed at a single period in Gaza, right? She said that the number of under fives who died, according to Albanese, was higher than the total population of under fives in Gaza. Like, she's fucking mental. Or the other UN special rapporteurs, the ones who saw the IPC in 2024 not declaring a famine, but then declared one anyway because they just ignored the science. Or the other special rapporteurs who in the past have had a history of transphobia, where one of the special rapporteurs for women's rights was out there saying that fucking the Iman Khalif, that Algerian boxer lady, was a man, right? With no evidence because some fucking grumpy Russian said that she was.
Yes,
and or the NGO
crimes, ethnic 60 seconds by asking one very simple question.
The UN Special Commission of Inquiry, which is chaired by one person who used to be a BDS activist, another person who went on some podcast and fucking said that they were getting in trouble because of too much Jewish control of social media, and who got defended by the other two chairs of the organization. You can do this for the International Association of Genocide Scholars, where you can become a genocide scholar just by donating like less than $100. Like, there's
UN Independent Commission.
But more broadly, okay, how do these organizations decide, say if there's an airstrike on a building and the IDF says that there were terrorists there, the health ministry just says the number of people who died and the demographics, and they don't even tell you civilian or militant, they just say people. How do they figure out who's correct? How do they figure out if there was actually a military target in the building? Well, what they do is they have middlemen who can give them contact with people who live in the area or on the ground, and they'll just call them and ask them. And then the people, by default, will say no. They don't tell you that Hamas pressures their own population and makes public announcements, and have done for over 10 years, saying, if anyone dies, do not say if they were a militant. You describe everyone as an innocent citizen. Hamas have said this. The Interior Ministry has put out videos on YouTube and on Facebook and on the radio in Gaza to say this to their supporters. And remember, Hamas will fuck you up if you do the opposite of what they want you to. There was a UN guy, a head of UNRWA, actually, because this is what happens when a human rights organization doesn't do what Hamas wants them to. Where was the guy? Gaza War Claims. UNRWA. Do you remember this guy from 2021? top UN official in Gaza, Matthias Smalley, he was the head of director of operations for UNRWA in Gaza, the highest UN official in Gaza. He very suddenly had to leave the Strip after he gave an interview where he was asked about the 11-day war, and he was asked if Israel had hit military targets. And he said that Israel was using precision strikes and had huge sophistication. And I think his exact quote was to say that they mostly hit military targets. But also, he spends the rest of the interview saying that this was one of the more brutal and more concentrated airstrikes that deeply impacted the civilian population. That caveat, though, was not good enough, and there were protesters outside of his office, and then Hamas, very, very subtly, said that they could no longer guarantee his safety, and he had to leave. That's what happens when a UN official
has labeled this a genocide. Let me play a short clip from Mehdi Hassan, since he will be able to get this point across quite succinctly.
Gaza has been cut off from the world for almost 3 years and subjected to...
I'm trying to find, there's this claim that roughly 70% of the dead were women and children, were contradicted by later identified death breakdowns. 120 to 123. Yeah. Really don't want to listen to Mehdi Hassan do his rap battle again.
anyone dies, do not say if they were a militant. You describe everyone as an innocent citizen. Hamas have said this. The Interior Ministry has put out videos on YouTube and on Facebook and on the radio in Gaza to say this to their supporters. And remember, Hamas will fuck you up if you do the opposite of what they want you to. There was a UN guy, a head of UNRWA, actually, because this is what happened.
Has labeled this a genocide.
UN Special Committee, the UN High Commissioner for
Amnesty International, who literally admitted that they wanted to hold back on doing a report on October 7th because of the political implications of exposing the extent of Hamas, or signing off on the narrative on the extent of Hamas's war crimes.
We'll be able to get
the UN Special Rapporteur for the Palestinian territories, fucking Albanese, who just tweets out every single fucking mad claim about the
Chief, UNICEF, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Bet Salem, Geisha, Physicians for Human Rights Israel, Doctors Without Borders, Oxfam, Save the Children, Christian Aid, Action Aid, the NGO Air Wars, the NGO Action on Armed Violence, the International Association of Genocide Scholars, and its president Melanie O'Brien, the editor of the Journal of Genocide Research, Dirk Moses, the author of the book What is Genocide, Martin Shaw, the leading Israeli Holocaust scholars, Omar Bartov, Amos Goldberg, Daniel Blattman, Raz Siegel, Shmuel Lederman, the Norwegian Refugee Council, the Danish Refugee Council, Refugees International, the International Rescue...
One day, if I ever had the time, you would do like a battle rap thing for all of these different organizations, like Amnesty International, the extent of Hamas, or signing off on the narrative on the extent of Hamas's war crimes.
We'll be able to get
the UN Special Rapporteur for the Palestinian territories, fucking Albanese, who just tweets out every single fucking mad claim about the inflated death tolls that she can get her hands on, who once claimed that more under 5...
So Amnesty International, there was a claim that about there was this Amnesty International was thinking of avoiding putting out a report on October 7th. Delayed publication, methodological disputes, or organizational priorities do not establish a pre-decided refusal to investigate. I'm having a hard time finding that in the transcript. So just a few more things, and then I think we'll move on to the next project. Yeah, what I'm doing with regards to LonerBox here, I'm just correcting some mixed claims and the false and unsupported claims. But of course, he gets a lot correct in this breakdown. I've given him some critiques with regards to reasoning and logic. For example, he claims that Gaza has never had 38,000 under fives. Substantially correct. UNICEF estimated about 335,000 children under 5 in Gaza at the end of 2023. Francesca Albanese's statement that 380,000 of a possible 680,000 dead were children under 5 exceeded the estimated pre-war under 5 population and rested on an unsupported speculative death toll. That was true. Okay, and then a claim comes up eventually. These UN experts were deliberately ignoring the science. This is at 123, 127, and it's related to the IPC. The IPC's June 2024 review said available evidence did not show that technical famine thresholds were currently met, while emphasizing catastrophic hunger and a high sustained famine risk. Independent UN experts later used recent child starvation deaths to say famine had spread. They were speaking under a human rights mandate, not issuing a formal IPC classification. Calling this deliberately ignoring science overstates a real disagreement about evidentiary thresholds. So it's better to distinguish a formal IPC famine classification from expert descriptions of starvation and famine conditions. There's also a claim later from LonerBox that Hamas put out official guidance, refer to anyone who has died as a civilian. So this is mixed. A 2014 Gaza Interior Ministry social media guide did urge activists to describe the dead as innocent civilians and avoid publishing commanders' details. This is relevant propaganda evidence. It does not prove that the health ministry's named death registry invents identities or that every present-day casualty claim is false. Right? That's not what he said in the quoted claim here, but LonerBox eventually says UNRWA directed Matthias Schmale concede that Israel had been hitting military targets for the most part, then retreated after pressure from Hamas. Finding Schmale said Israeli strikes appeared unusually precise and sophisticated in the period he observed. He also described the bombardment as, quote, terror from the skies, and emphasized the unacceptable civilian loss. Summarizing his remarks as a broad admission that Israel mostly hit military targets strips away major qualifications. This was a misleading one. This is at 126. We might as well if we're gonna.
Director of Operations for UNRWA in Gaza, the highest UN official in Gaza, he very suddenly had to leave the Strip after he gave an interview where he was asked about the 11-day war, and he was asked if Israel had hit military targets. And he said that Israel was using precision strikes and had huge sophistication. And I think his exact quote was to say that they mostly hit military targets. But also, he spends the rest of the interview saying that this was one of the more brutal and more concentrated airstrikes that deeply impacted the civilian population. That caveat, though, was not good enough, and there were protesters outside of his office, and then Hamas, very, very subtly, said that they could no longer guarantee his safety, and he had to leave. That's what happens when a UN official or a human rights worker with connections to the Gaza Strip or who has colleagues in the Gaza Strip, this is what they're doing. This is what they're risking when they cross Hamas. And
so you
expect to get accurate information from these people on the ground. Why the fuck would they do that? I don't even think they should do that. Why should a UN worker whose job is to deliver aid first and foremost, why the fuck should they stick their necks out and get fucking murdered by Hamas just to tell Amnesty International that there was a tunnel or there were soldiers in a building? Why would they do that? But none of these organizations, none of these fucking long list of battle rap fucking scholars and institutions that Mehdi Hassan rattled off there they don't say that. They just don't say it. So the reality is, the only way that we ever get to know if a strike was legitimate or not, if there was a target in the building, is on the rare occasion that Hamas just admits it, or Islamic Jihad just admits it. That's the only time you ever know.
So Matthias Schmale conceded that Israel had been hitting military targets for the most part, then retreated after pressure from Hamas. Schmale said Israeli strikes appeared unusually precise and sophisticated in the period he observed. He also described the bombardment as terror from the skies and emphasized the unacceptable civilian loss, summarizing his remarks as a broad admission that Israel mostly hit military target strips military target strips away major qualifications. So correction here, because this is kind of misleading. The best correction is present both parts of Schmale's statement and the limited observational basis of his comment. So present both parts. Yeah. So present both parts of Schmale's statement and the limited observational basis of his comment. We have some more mixed, but that, all in all, with regards to the kind of audit we're doing here, great work on this video by LonerBox. It's a 2 hour and 14 minute analysis. There was 33 material claim clusters that aren't repeated. 42.4% of this video was substantially correct. There was 11 mixed, materially incomplete statements, 33.3%. False or unsupported, we have a total of 8, which represents 24.2%. 24.2%. It's okay. We can do much better on that number if you invoke some more wide-reaching epistemic methods to get closer to what's actually going on in reality, get a more high-resolution view of these things. And one of the ways to do that is to train an AI system to help you with your research and fact-checking. Or you need to broaden your horizons, or you need to not rely on your memory as much for things that are going to be updated since when you last maybe looked into some of these issues. Well, generally pretty good. I want to see that false or unsupported number around 15%. 15% or better would be great. So perhaps that can be a future goal. Chitter said, did your system pick up all the correct claims that LonerBox made? Yeah, you made that comment a while ago. Yeah. Yeah. All in all, it's a pretty good score. I like, a few more less false or unsupported claims. We're going to be in that ideal range. Easily fixed by better research and fact-finding standards. Easily fixed. So, in saying that, let's look at that the right thing? No, that was, I want a different document. I want a different document. I'm going to do some rapid fire Dave Farina misinformation correction. But first, a quick bathroom break. Literally 1.2 seconds. All right. This will be fun. Okay, I'm going to share this with you guys. Try this out. So some of the key misses by Dave here. Let's get rid of this. How you guys doing? You hanging in there? Hope so. Window capture. Nice. Let's read through this new document. Oop. I won't be able to do this as fast as Mehdi Hassan. No way. All right. Let's look at this. Unsupported conspiracy inference. False, 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 false extrapolation, false extrapolation, false defamatory legal conclusion. Okay. Dave says, yes, he is literally calling me a Nazi. Correction and assessment. The excerpt shown criticizes rhetoric as resembling neo-Nazi themes. It does not simply or literally say Dave is a Nazi. Farina converted an analogy diagnosis of rhetoric into a direct identity claim. The correction is based on an internal comparison shown in the transcript, the absence of primary proof in the video, or the proposition's universal causal structure. Dave says, a fabrication of 40 beheaded babies, which Joe Biden himself publicly claimed to have seen photographic evidence of, only to later walk back and admit that no such evidence exists since it's not a thing that happened. The specific viral claim that 40 babies were beheaded was unsubstantiated, and the White House clarified that Biden had not personally seen such photographs, but no such evidence exists since it's not a thing that happened, overcorrects. Children and infants were killed, and the record does not establish that the Israeli state deliberately fabricated the exact rumor. Endless claims of rape when in fact it is Israel that systematically rapes Palestinian prisoners in the most brutal manner imaginable. Credible investigations found reasonable grounds to believe that Hamas and other armed group members committed sexual violence on October 7th. Separate evidence of systematic sexual abuse of Palestinian detainees is also serious. The words, when in fact, falsely frame one body of abuse as disproving the other. Claims of immense networks of Hamas bases underneath hospitals to justify the bombing of every single hospital in Gaza, only to prove zero evidence of such bases after the fact, except a few planted guns several hours after entering and a list of terrorists that was really a calendar. The vast Central Command Center depiction of Al-Shifa was not substantiated at the scale advertised, and the calendar was misidentified. But, quote, zero evidence is false. U.S. intelligence and reporting supported some militant use of Al-Shifa, including command infrastructure, weapons and hostages, The separate assertion that guns were planted is not established, nor was literally every hospital bombed. For a totally pre-planned campaign of ethnic cleansing and land theft. Unsupported. There is substantial evidence of forcible displacement, annexationist proposals, and land seizure. Totally pre-planned, however, asserts a comprehensive pre-October 7th plan and singular campaign purpose that the video does not establish. Influencers were being paid to disseminate the narratives that the state had settled on each day. Israeli state-linked influence campaigns and paid advocacy are documented. The claim goes further by asserting a single daily narrative and a fully demonstrated chain of command for all referenced influencers. The important mechanism was not shown. The correction is based on the internal comparison shown in the transcript, the absence of primary proof in the video, and the proposition's universal/causal structure. The wrong people noticed, so they dogpiled on me and got my account suspended. Without X's enforcement record, coordinated reporting cannot be stated as the proven cause of the suspension. Posts, reports, automated enforcement, and platform policy could all have contributed. The correction is based on the internal comparison shown in the transcript, the absence of primary proof in the video, or the proposition's universal causal structure. Zionists love anti-Semites. There are documented tactical alliances between some pro-Israel actors and anti-Semitic or far-right political figures. That does not justify a generic plural claim that Zionists as a class... That does not justify a general plural claim about Zionists as a class. One more time on that. There are documented tactical alliances between some pro-Israel actors and anti-Semitic or far-right political figures that does not justify a generic plural claim about Zionists as a class. So you'll see as well on the screen, or people can, if they want to adjudicate the sources, you can see the actual sources on the screen as well. Thousands, and I'm not joking, literally thousands of these for weeks. Oh, that was a effing thousands of these for weeks. These came from the bot farms that Israel employs to shift the narrative on every platform they can. Israel and Israeli-linked actors have used coordinated influence operations. The origin of the particular YouTube comments, their number, and their connection to an Israeli bot farm were not demonstrated. The correction here is based on internal comparisons shown in the transcript, the absence of primary proof in the video, or the proposition's universal causal structure. More than 80% of Israelis support the complete annihilation of the Palestinian people. Polling has found deeply disturbing support for forced transfer, voluntary departure incentives, and renewed settlement among many Jewish Israeli respondents. Those questions are not equivalent to support for physically annihilating Palestinians, and they do not establish the claim for more than 80% of all Israelis. Israeli officials, legislators, military personnel, decision makers, they all state this openly. They desire to completely wipe out the Palestinian population. Many authentic statements by officials and public figures are dehumanizing, expulsionist, or destructionist, and are relevant to legal analysis of intent. They all is a false universal. Israeli officials, legislators, soldiers, and decision makers do not share one stated position. Here's Israeli Minister for Social Equality announcing how proud she is of the ruins of Gaza and that every baby 80 years from now will tell their grandchildren what the Jews did. They take pride in the complete annihilation of a people. May Golan really said she was, quote, personally proud of the ruins of Gaza, and that future babies would tell descendants that the Jews did, what the Jews did. The statement is authentic and highly inflammatory. The misinformation is the narration's leap from one minister's word to the collective claim that they take pride in the complete annihilation of a people. Golan's quotation itself does not say complete annihilation or establish a uniform national position. Okay. Dave says, countless children in Gaza have been targeted and executed by snipers. Soldiers state outright that they intentionally murder children and that they're specifically ordered to do it. There are documented cases and serious expert allegations of children deliberately shot or killed with precision weapons. The video does not establish countless sniper executions, a general order to murder children, or that the selected clips authenticate such a system-wide command. We did talk about earlier about that number. It was like 167 or something reported cases that likely still have to be adjudicated, that of children who were reportedly killed by single gunshot wounds to the head or to the chest. They are the chosen people, so they can do whatever they want. This means that any land they desire is theirs for the taking, supported by citizenry, and has been brainwashed into believing that they are genuinely superior to other peoples. Religious nationalist supremacy and annexationist rhetoric exists in Israeli politics. The video does not establish that Israeli soldiers, officials, or the citizenry generally justify killing and territorial acquisition through a single, quote, chosen people belief. Arabs will be slaves, They are inferior. Babies are terrorists. This is Israel. This is not some fringe political group. This is the whole bleep country. The clips document real extremist rhetoric, but they do not make the rhetoric the view of the whole country. Israel contains large and politically diverse Jewish and Arab populations, anti-war movements, and sharp disagreements over Gaza. It is the first genocide in history that has been broadcast globally in real time on a daily basis. The Gaza war is extraordinarily documented in real time. First genocide in history is not established and depends on a contested legal classification and an undefined media threshold. Atrocities in Bosnia, Rwanda, Darfur, Myanmar were also broadcast or digitally documented while occurring. The countless bodies instantly vaporized, the countless bodies still trapped under rubble that will never be recovered, the countless bodies with limbs zip-tied and shoved into mass graves with dirt bulldozed on top of them, often still alive, shrieking as they get their last glimpse at daylight. Many people remain missing under rubble. Some remains may have been fragmented or burned beyond recovery, and mass graves with some bound bodies raised grave concerns. The video supplied no forensic basis for countless vaporized bodies or for saying people were often buried alive while shrieking. Those allegations require investigation, not narration as established fact. And it is objectively genocide. A substantial and increasingly authoritative body of legal, human rights, and scholarly opinion concludes that genocide or genocidal acts have occurred. The ICJ has not yet issued a final merits judgment. The academically precise formulation is that genocide is a strongly supported legal conclusion, not a final contested judicial fact. Every single human rights organization in the entire world has labeled this a genocide. Many major organizations have used genocide or acts of genocide findings. Others use extermination, crimes against humanity, war crimes, or narrower formulations. Every single organization is literally false. Any official numbers you'll see that hover around 70,000 killed are so far off the mark, it's insane. The reported direct toll is likely incomplete, and indirect mortality is substantial, but the degree of undercount cannot be asserted with this certainty. By June 21st, 2026, UNRWA relayed 73,035 reported deaths. That is a reported direct count, not proof that hundreds of thousands had already died. An independent study in The Lancet estimated well over 180,000, half of which are children. And that was in July of 2024, 2 full years ago. The cited Lancet item was a short correspondence, not an independently mortality study. It said that applying a historical indirect to direct death ratio made up to 186,000 or even more attributable deaths not implausible over time. It did not measure 180,000 deaths already incurred and did not estimate half were children. Thanks, honey. I got some food showing up. Israel hasn't stopped bombing Gaza for a single day since July 2024, ceasefire or not. The literal claim is false. A ceasefire entered into force on January 19th, 2025, and produced a substantial pause in large-scale Israeli bombardment, even though lethal incidents and later renewed attacks occurred. The record, therefore, does not support hasn't stopped bombing for a single day. Israel has murdered hundreds of thousands of Gazans, likely at least 20% of the Gazan population. No reliable demographic study establishes that roughly 1/5 of Gaza's population had already died by the video date. This figure conflates reported deaths, missing persons, modeled indirect mortality, and possible future deaths. They also specifically targeted hundreds of journalists, well over 1,000 doctors. Hundreds of journalists and media workers have been killed, and CPJ has documented many apparent targeted killings. That does not prove that every or hundreds were selected because of journalism. UN figures for health workers include nurses, paramedics, technicians, and others. They cannot be relabeled as more than 1,000 verified doctors. The continued use of white phosphorus and other illegal weapons. White phosphorus is not categorically an illegal weapon. Particular use can violate distinction, precautions, proportionality, or incendiary weapons rules, especially air bursts over populated areas. Human Rights Watch documented uses. Human Rights Watch documented uses it considered unlawful or dangerously indiscriminate. Francesca Albanese of the UN Refugee Agency published a report. Francesca Albanese in the UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967, an independent expert mandate. She is not an official of the UN Refugee Agency and did not head UNRWA or UNHCR. Yeah, so she is not an official of the UN Refugee Agency. "90% of Gazans displaced, absolutely all 90% of Gazans displaced, absolutely all farmland unusable, continuous blocking of humanitarian aid, starvation and life-threatening malnutrition, mass executions of healthcare and rescue workers, displacement." Why am I hearing? Oh, I know why. There we go. I was still logged into Discord. Sorry. 90% of Gazans displaced, absolutely all farmland unusable, continuous blocking of humanitarian aid, starvation and life-threatening malnutrition, mass executions of healthcare and rescue workers, displacement, agricultural devastation, aid obstruction, and killings of health and rescue workers are extensively documented. Quote, absolutely all farmland unusable is not literal. OSHA, OCHA, UNO, SAT, UNOSAT reported 87% of cropland damaged and only about 4% undamaged and accessible. Mass executions requires case-specific proof rather than aggregation of deaths into an execution claim. More than 78% of Gazans more than 78% of Gazan infrastructure has been demolished by relentless carpet bombing. UN data reported about 81% of structures damaged or destroyed, not demolished. Housing, roads, utility, schools, and other categories use different denominations. Carpet bombing is also a technical characterization not established by the percentage alone. Are you guys still with me there? Good. I have to refresh my window, I think. It's my YouTube window. There we go. Nice. What? Pug is back, everyone. quoted me saying most Israelis support ethnic cleansing, but that doesn't mean that most Israelis support ethnic cleansing. Is that you actually quoting me? I hope that's not what you heard. Every hospital, every school, every bakery, every city demolished. The destruction is catastrophic. Roughly 93% of school buildings required major rehabilitation or reconstruction, and the health system was devastated. But every hospital, school, bakery, and city is literally false. Some facilities remained partially functional, and damaged is not identical to demolished. There was zero regard for precision. They weren't aiming for some imaginary terrorist. They were never doing anything but destroying Gaza from day one. The scale and pattern of destruction support grave allegations of indiscriminate, disproportionate, and deliberately destructive conduct. Zero regard, imaginary terrorists, and never doing anything but erase documented militant targets and convert a serious pattern case into an absolute claim about every strike and motive. This has nothing to do with Hezbollah, whose label of terrorist organization is laughable to begin with. Hezbollah and any other group that is labeled terrorists by Israel are simply people desperately defending themselves against Israeli terrorism. Hezbollah formed as a direct response to the Sabra and Shatila massacres, for example. Hezbollah arose amid Israel's 1982 invasion and occupation with decisive Iranian Revolutionary Guard support. It has long armed political and transitional record. It has a long-armed political and transitional record, including attacks on civilians and foreign targets and intervention in Syria. It cannot be reduced to simply defensive resistance, and its terrorism designation is made by multiple governments, not only Israel. This level of destruction has nothing to do with Hezbollah. A huge chunk of Lebanon is Israel now. They will build, settlers will come, and that's the end of it. Israeli forces occupied and retained positions inside southern Lebanon, and annexationist rhetoric exists. That does not make the land legally Israel, prove that the campaign had nothing to do with Hezbollah, or establish that civilian settlements would be built in a settled outcome, as a settled outcome. It was never about the terrorists or protecting Israel or getting back hostages or anything of the sort. Not for a single second was it ever about any of those things. Israeli officials didn't give two shits. Should I say shits? Yeah, I mean, I just didn't want to get the video demonetized, but Israeli officials didn't give two shits about hostages. They were an excuse to keep bombing. Israeli policy can be criticized for sacrificing hostage welfare, prolonging war, or prioritizing other objectives, but not for a single second, and an excuse claim but not for a single second, and an excuse claim complete access to all decision makers' motives and contradict real hostage negotiations, exchanges, rescue operations, and domestic political conflict over hostage return. They paid money to fabricate pretense for a military operation with the singular goal of clearing out Gaza to keep it with Lebanon and Syria to follow shortly after. That sounds weird. They paid money to fabricate pretense for a military operation with the singular goal of clearing out Gaza to keep it with Lebanon and Syria to follow shortly after. The video does not produce evidence of a paid fabrication operation with the singular transnational territorial plan. Annexationists ambitions and territorial occupations are real concerns, this specific coordinated master plan is not established. An American military base is being built within the territory. A February 2026 report based on contracting records described plans for a large multinational force base inside southern Gaza. By June, reporting on construction placed a U.S.-linked facility on the Israeli side of the border near Raim. The categorical present tense statement that a base is being built within Gaza was therefore not securely established as of the video date, although a serious Gaza-based plan had been reported. Plans are underway to round up remaining Gazans and put them into concentration camps while they clear out the rubble and start to build new Gaza. You heard that correctly. Zionist Jews are going to put people in concentration camps. Israeli officials and U.S.-backed planners did float large controlled encampment or humanitarian city transit area proposals, and critics warned that they could become de facto concentration camps or vehicles for forced displacement. Reporting also described the plans as preliminary, contested, or not under active U.S. consideration, saying settled, quote, plans are underway to round up all remaining Gazans overstates the evidence. Attributing the project to Zionist Jews as a group collectivizes responsibility. You guys hanging in there? Rock and roll. What's up, Don Don? Jared Kushner unveiled the plans for New Gaza, which will be luxury resorts as far as the eye can see, with some land carved out for Trump as a thank you for greenlighting all of this. Kushner did unveil a Trump-backed New Gaza redevelopment concept featuring coastal tourism, high-rises, data centers, and seaside resorts. The additional claim that land was personally carved out for Trump as a thank you, and the inference that this proves the war was launched for that real estate objective were not established. Israel almost certainly knew what was going to happen, and they did nothing to stop it. Oh, we're in the October 7th foreknowledge, Nova, and friendly fire section. So relating to October 7th. Israel almost certainly knew what was going to happen, and they did nothing to stop it. There is strong evidence of intelligence, preparedness, and command failures, ignored warnings, and flawed assumptions. That does not establish foreknowledge of the attack plan, plus a deliberate decision to allow it. The music festival taking place just 3 miles from the Gaza barrier was moved there from its original location at the last minute. Organizers did change the festival site shortly before the event after the original location fell through. That fact does not show the festival was deliberately placed as bait or that Israeli authorities had foreknowledge of the attack. The IDF's later probe concluded that Hamas did not know about Nova in advance and that attackers encountered it after going off route. Israeli soldiers were even ordered to cancel all patrols along the Gazan border on the morning of October 7th, with no justification given. The October 7th record contains grave intelligence deployment, communication, and command failures, including troops near Nova not being told about the festival. It does not establish a border-wide order canceling, quote, all patrols that morning. A localized restriction or gap cannot be converted into a universal stand-down order. Hundreds of the civilian casualties were the fault of Israel due to both friendly fire as well as the Hannibal Directive, which involves killing their own citizens on purpose to prevent their captivity. Israeli friendly fire and risk accepting Hannibal-type decisions did kill some Israelis. The UN Commission could not confirm helicopter fire or civilians at Nova and verified likely Hannibal applications in at least 2 other cases, causing up to 14 civilian deaths. That does not support hundreds or a blanket directive to intentionally kill Israeli citizens. Israel, now we're on to U.S.-Israel legislation, surveillance, and protest law. Israel is trying to force the United States to formally merge the American and Israeli militaries. The Futures Act creates a bilateral framework for defense research, testing, procurement, and technology integration. It does not merge sovereign militaries. That money will not require congressional approval. It's just part of the federal budget that the executive branch can arbitrarily provide at any time and in any moment. Federal spending remains subject to statutory authorization, appropriations, and fiscal law. The bill does not grant the executive unlimited authority to provide Israel money at any time and in any amount. We're still talking about the Futures Act. If that were to happen, soldiers would be forced to fight for Israel. That would mean the young Americans could be drafted against their will. The bill contains no authority to draft Americans into Israeli wars or place U.S. service members under a general obligation to fight for Israel. You guys hanging in there? Say how you are feeling generally today, your well-being. Give me 1 to 10. 10 being you're feeling amazing today, your well-being is like through the roof. 1, you're feeling like crap. Just so I know you're alive, just so I know you're there. Make the Pentagon totally dependent on Israel. No American intelligence could be withheld from Israel. Any attempt to defy Israel's wishes by any future president could be regarded as a military coup. The bill promotes interoperability and joint development. It does not transfer command, guarantee Israel all U.S. intelligence, eliminate presidential authority, or convert policy disagreement into a coup. We have some 6s, we have some 7s, we have some 8s, 5, but not related to the stream. I was just going to say, like, is it my fault? 6s, 7s, and 8s. Okay, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. 8's a nice score. 6, though, we got to do better than 6. We can do better than 6. I'll up my Dave Farina impersonation. Maybe that'll help. This is a hostile takeover of the American government by a foreign entity. This is Netanyahu trying to place himself formally in charge of aspects of the American government. Every politician supporting this motion is guilty of treason. This is a conspiratorial extrapolation from a real defense cooperation bill. Supporting the bill is not treason, and the text does not formally place Netanyahu in charge of U.S. government functions. It is common knowledge that Gaza is a testing ground for experimental weapons. New weapons are routinely tested on Palestinian guinea pigs. Israel has developed and field-tested military systems during conflicts, and companies market, quote, battle-proven technology. Common knowledge routinely and Palestinian guinea pigs turn a documented military innovation issue into an unbound factual claim without a defined inventory or evidentiary standard. Musk and Zuckerberg both routinely censor Palestinian content on Instagram and Twitter. Posts, stories, and entire accounts are regularly deleted, most notably anything depicting Israeli human rights violations. There is substantial evidence of disproportionate removal, suppression, and reduced visibility affecting Palestinian, pro-Palestinian content, but anything depicting Israeli human rights violations is a universal claim, and attributing all platform decisions personally to Musk and Zuckerberg obscure different policies, moderation systems, and causes. Meta complied with 94% of takedown requests issued by Israel since October 7th. That same year, The Intercept reported that YouTube removed 700 videos published by official Palestinian human rights organizations. The 94% meta figure was credibly reported from leaked internal data, but it was not a public independent audit and does not itself establish the merits of each request. The 700 plus YouTube removals were real. YouTube said it deleted the channels because of US sanctions on the organizations, not because of a direct Israeli takedown request. Combining the two facts implies a single causal mechanism the evidence does not establish. Dave. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there. Zionist billionaire Larry Ellison, who purchased TikTok in January of this year. TikTok's U.S. operation was placed in a multi-investor joint venture. Oracle, Silver Lake, and MGX each held major stakes. ByteDance retained 19.9%. Ellison did not personally purchase TikTok. Once Ellison acquired TikTok, pro-Palestinian content was censored almost completely, and prominent Palestinian journalists were abruptly banned. The ownership premise is false, and the video provides no systematic before and after content dataset establishing near total censorship caused by Ellison. Individual bans or moderation controversies do not prove the sweeping causal claim. A foreign company has unlimited access not only to private data of American citizens, but also the details of how American law enforcement surveils its population. Mass warrantless cellular tracking without consent and with zero transparency. Falconet systems are Israeli-made cell site simulators deployed by U.S. police and capable of forcing nearby phones, including uninvolved bystanders' devices, to connect. Reporting says retention periods and later access depend on police policies and are often opaque. No evidence establishes that Israeli company or Israeli state automatically has, quote, unlimited access to all collected American data. Unmanned cranes with machine guns are being used to murder Gazans. These cranes fire randomly and continuously at tents and exposed neighborhoods. The elevated crane-mounted weapons and at least one shooting are well supported. UNICEF reported a 12-year-old girl shot in the chest in her tent by a crane-mounted gun. I believe she survived, though, by the way, for the record. Claims that the cranes fire, quote, randomly and continuously across neighborhoods derive from advocacy and witness reporting rather than an independently established system-wide firing policy, while, quote, used to murder Gazans, states intent as a proven fact. Anyone who criticizes Israel is being monitored by the FBI. The government has broad powers to prosecute almost anyone under terrorism charges simply for doing routine journalism or peacefully protesting. Surveillance and civil liberties concerns are real, but the FBI does not monitor literally everyone who criticizes Israel, and peaceful criticisms or routine journalism is not itself criminalized by NSPM 7. The memorandum targets alleged organized political violence and related networks, though its breadth may invite abuse. Okay. Eight anti-ICE protesters were recently each sentenced to 30 to 100 years in prison. One of them wasn't even at the bleep protest. He just moved a box of pamphlets. 8 defendants did receive extremely long sentences, but the prosecutions involved findings or allegations of rioting, firearms, explosives, attempted murder, material support, conspiracy, and evidence concealment. The absent defendant's box moving was treated as concealment, logistical participation in the conspiracy, not merely moving harmless pamphlets. NSPM 7 officially directs federal agencies to aggressively investigate and disrupt groups and individuals that they decide are linked to political violence. What are the targets? Anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, extremism on migration, race, and gender, opposition to traditional American views on family, religion, and morality. This is the complete dismantling of free speech. The memorandum does list ideological common threads said to animate violent conduct, a formulation that raises serious civil liberties concerns. It does not make anti-capitalism, criticism of Christianity, progressive gender views, or immigration advocacy crimes in themselves. The video converts risk indicators and investigatory policy into direct criminalization of beliefs. A new law in Britain criminalizing journalism and activism. Germany is on board as well, approving a bill that makes criticism of Israel a criminal offense punishable by 5 years in prison. The German proposal concerned public denial of Israel's right to exist or calls for its abolition in circumstances capable of promoting anti-Semitic violence, not ordinary criticism of Israeli policy. It was a legislative proposal, not a blanket 5-year ban on criticism. UK counter-terror measures raise real press and protest concerns, but quote, criminalizing journalism and activism as such is likewise overboard. They will send ICE agents or drones to murder people in broad daylight. Sympathy for the victims of Israeli terrorism are now terrorists, according to the state. Israel has their hands in absolutely all of this. All of it. This is a prediction and conspiracy assertion, not an established fact. NSPM 7 does not classify sympathy for Palestinian victims as terrorism, and no evidence is supplied that Israel controls every component of U.S. immigration, surveillance, and protest policy. Okay, now we're on to USS Liberty, flotillas, and nuclear doctrine. Israel can and would commit a terrorist attack on American soil, blame it on Arabs. The plan was to sink an American ship, blame it on Egypt, and lure America into war on their behalf. The 1967 USS Liberty attack killed 34 Americans and remains deeply disputed. Survivors and some officials argue it was deliberate. Official U.S. and Israeli conclusions attributed it to mistaken identification. No authoritative investigation established the specific false flag plan described here as fact. Hundreds of European activists were detained, beaten, tortured, and raped. Detention and credible allegations of physical mistreatment can be reported separately. The sentence grammatically attributes detention, beating, torture, and rape across, quote, hundreds without establishing that hundreds experienced each abuse. Rape allegations require specific, independently verified evidence. They will just nuke everybody. The Samson option is generally discussed as last resort massive retaliation against enemy states in an existential defeat scenario, not a documented plan to indiscriminately exterminate everyone on Earth. They refuse to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which means they aren't obligated to be inspected for nukes, which means they absolutely have nukes. Israel is overwhelmingly assessed to possess nuclear weapons and maintains opacity outside the NPT. But non-membership and limited inspections do not logically prove possession. The conclusion is strongly supported by other evidence, not by this syllogism. Claims about destiny, media ownership, and political control. Right out of his own mouth, he is pro-genocide. He supports the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. He thinks they should either be killed or removed. Ethnic cleansing is super awesome, according to Destiny. The underlying "I'm pro-genocide" quotation is real and morally reckless, followed by support for Palestinians leaving and Israel fixing borders. Farina then converts the clip into a complete current position that Palestinians should be killed or removed. The strongest conclusion requires the full conversation, date, and later clarifications, not an expanded paraphrase. If you didn't know that IOF soldiers do this all the time, now you know. There is a documented pattern of soldiers filming themselves rummaging through Palestinian homes and handling or wearing women's intimate clothing. Quote, all the time is an imprecise frequency claim, not a measured statistic. What was very clearly an Israel-funded propaganda trip. Meetings with Israeli officials, access to sites, or participation in an organized itinerary do not prove Israeli payment. The video supplies no invoice, sponsorship disclosure, contract, or financial record establishing state funding. Hamas using Palestinians as human shields when that's actually what Israel does. The ultra-sophisticated Hamas bases under the hospitals that were never there. Israeli use of Palestinian civilians as human shields has been documented and should be condemned. That does not erase evidence of Hamas embedding military activity in civilian environments or some militant use of hospitals. Never there is contradicted by the Al-Shifa evidence, even though the vast headquarters depiction was overstated. Destiny was recruited by Israel to publish content to brainwash American liberals into denying genocide. No recruitment agreement, payment record, directive, or corroborated testimony is presented. This is a conspiracy allegation inferred from access, travel, and political agreement. Destiny is denying the objective fact that hundreds of Palestinians have died of malnutrition and starvation. Starvation conditions and deaths from malnutrition are extensively documented. Whether the specific clip denied all starvation deaths, disputed account, or challenged causal attribution requires the full exchange. Farina states the most incriminating interpretation as the only one. Rafa al-Arir was killed alongside his entire family, including his children. Rafat al-Arir was killed with his brother, his sister, and 4 of her children, not with his wife and all 6 of his children. Contemporary profiles report that his wife and 6 children survived him. The phrase entire family, including his children, is false. Paramount, Warner Brothers, CBS, CNN, and HBO are all under one entity owned by Larry Ellison. As of August 4th, 2026, which is today, Paramount, CBS were within Paramount Skydance, while Warner Bros. Discovery, containing CNN, HBO, and Warner Bros. Remained a separate company because the proposed acquisition had not closed and faced a March 2027 antitrust trial. Larry Ellison was a major financier investor connected to Paramount Skydance, not the personal owner of one completed entity containing every named outlet. Are we taking this all in? No, I haven't gone over this document. There will be, just so everyone's in the know, I'm currently working with my my colleague and Master of Education for Pangburn, Thomas Panter, on version 2 of the full Pangburn analysis of Dave's video. Yeah, we're trying to find ways to improve on the precise nature of it, the resolution of it. There are some things about the first report that I want to upgrade. I want to clarify. I want to make sure the categories make a little more sense. So yeah, we're going to continue improving all of this kind of documentation, and eventually we will have a well-tuned, well-oiled fact-checking machine that can be passed on and shared freely to anyone that they can start using. Yeah. To say that the vast majority of mainstream media outlets are not controlled by Zionists is not a bleeping conspiracy theory. It's a statement of fact. Pro-Israel editorial influence, ownership concentration, lobbying, and source selection are legitimate subjects of evidence-based study. They do not establish hidden centralized Zionist control of the vast majority of mainstream media outlets. Zionists take over CBS and they immediately host the Zionist fraud. Avi Loeb's media appearance and CBS bookings require date-by-date comparison. The video does not establish that the specific appearance resulted from Barry Weiss, Larry Ellison, or a, quote, Zionist takeover. Correlation and ideological affinity are not proof of the booking decision. In 2024, AIPAC spent $126 million supporting pro-Israel candidates and smearing anyone who dares utter a word against them, which is why not a single Republican senator or representative, and even very few Democrats, will publicly oppose Israel. A combined AIPAC network figure around $126 million can be produced, depending on which affiliated PAC, super PAC contributions, and independent expenditures are aggregated. So the magnitude is plausible, only with disclosed counting rules. It does not establish that every expenditure was a, quote, smear, and it plainly does not prove that no Republican member of Congress ever opposed Israeli policy. All of them except Manny would visit Israel. The full debate included candidates who answered Canada, Colombia, the Caribbean, Jamaica, and New York City, as well as candidates who answered Israel for the Holy Land. The selected clip omitted contrary answers and did not represent all candidates. So just to be clear, that was the when we were showing potential mayors. I believe it was for New York City, and Mamdani was. This says Mamdani. That's funny. But yeah, this is about where he was like, only Mamdani had the balls to say that he's going to stay, in New York City. And he said, all of them except him would visit Israel. And that just wasn't true. I did a little digging on that. This wasn't provided in the video. The full debate included candidates who answered Canada, Colombia, the Caribbean, Jamaica, and New York City, as well as candidates who answered Israel or the Holy Land. The selected clip omitted contrary answers and did not represent all candidates. So on Zionism, we're getting there. On Zionism, anti-Semitism, genetics, and history. They're anti-Semites. Obviously, anyone who conflates Judaism with Zionism or anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, as Israel constantly does, and as Destiny just did, is a worthless anti-Semitic piece of shit. Zionism is anti-Semitism. I'm going to say that one more time so that it sinks in. Zionism is anti-Semitism. The footage and surrounding evidence must establish why police used force. Orthodox anti-Zionists are sometimes beaten during protests, but the specific causal claim cannot be assumed from a clip. More broadly, Zionism and anti-Semitism are not identical concepts. Particular Zionists can act anti-Semitically, and anti-Semites can support Israel, but categorical equivalence is false. So this was related to was it a conflict with Judaism? Yeah, the footage and surrounding evidence must establish why police use force. Oh yeah, this was police. The clip when police use force against people in Israel, and there wasn't really. It was trying to make it seem like these people were being attacked by police because they were, resisting the war or what's going on in Gaza. That was the way it was framed. Zionism is responsible for the lion's share of actual anti-Semitism that exists around the world as people react to Israeli aggression and misplace their anger on Jews as a whole. Israeli conduct can trigger misplaced anti-Semitic backlash, but the moral agency remains with anti-Semites. No global causal study supports, quote, the lion's share, and anti-Semitism predates modern Zionism by many centuries. Zionism is to Jewish supremacy as Nazism is to white supremacy. They are indistinguishable. Zionism is Nazism. So just before I'll read the correction. Specific Zionist currents and Israeli policies can be criticized as supremacist, colonial, apartheid, ethnic cleansing, or genocidal. Modern Zionism and Nazism nevertheless differ radically in origins, institutions, doctrines, and historical projects. Indistinguishable is just false. And remember, Zionism is such a large category. There are so many different types of Zionism: political Zionism, religious Zionism, just many different categories. And remember, it's generally believed that about 60% of the world's Jews would be okay wearing the label of Zionist based on some kind of usage of the term. So we're really talking about, if Dave is going to conflate Zionists to Zionism, then he's really saying that 60% of the Jews on this planet, roughly, are Nazis. You and all your piece of shit Zionist cronies are not Semites. Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews like you and Bibi are all the rest are European. You literally are not a Semite, while Palestinians are Semites. Therefore, Zionists are in reality anti-Semitic. Ashkenazi Jews like Bibi are way more European than Middle Eastern. Semite is a linguistic historical category, not a biological test that determines who can experience anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism conventionally means hostility toward Jews. Population genetic research shows Ashkenazi Jews have both substantial Levantine, Middle Eastern, and European ancestry. Sephardi populations are also diverse. The biological syllogism is invalid. This is also why these ancestry kits are tightly regulated in Israel and can't be purchased in Israeli. They don't want citizens to find out that they're not Middle Eastern. That ancestry got diluted and they're largely European. Israel regulates particular legal family relationship and paternity tests, often requiring court authorization. That is not proof of a general ancestry test ban, and no documentary evidence shows a concealment motive. Ashkenazi ancestry is mixed. Studies often estimate substantial contributions from both Europeans and Middle Eastern sources rather than, quote, not Middle Eastern. We're getting there, folks. We're getting there. Plowing through. We're doing it. We're doing it. Jews and Christians lived in Palestine and they got along just fine. Jews could have immigrated in large numbers to the Levant after the Holocaust and integrated into existing societies, including Palestine. They didn't do that. Zionist militias went in and started murdering and stealing everything. Pre-1948 Palestine included periods of coexistence, as well as discrimination, communal violence, nationalist conflict, and British restrictions. Zionist militias committed massacres and expulsions, but the history also includes legal immigration, land purchase, Arab violence, civil war, and competing national movements. Got along just fine and started murdering and stealing everything are polemical compressions. Polemical, I should say. It's late. Polemical compressions, not adequate history. The rioting needs to stop, and if that means like white redneck militia dude. Oh, okay. This is Oh wait. Oh, okay. There's some. This is okay. This is Destiny's quote here. they could torch buildings at 10 p.m. At this point, they have my blessing. Holy shit. Needs to stop. Needs to stop a long time ago. Okay. I got to do my best Destiny impersonation. The rioting needs to stop. And if that means like white redneck militia dudes out there mowing down protesters that think that they could torch buildings at 10 p.m., then at this point, they have my blessing. Because like, holy, this needs to stop. It needs to stop a long time ago. White supremacists should mass murder protesters. They have Destiny's blessing. The underlying statement is reprehensible advocacy of militia violence against protesters described as burning buildings. Farina changes, quote, white redneck militia dudes into white supremacists, removes the property destruction condition, and recasts mowing down as the broader proposition that white supremacists should mass murder protesters. Criticism is warranted, but the paraphrase is not exact. I did my best Destiny there. Nice try, your Davis kid, though. I need to work on a Destiny one. I do. Oh, now we're into this stuff. Ugh. So Destiny's argument is that a 30-year-old randomly sexting a 14-year-old isn't grooming. But if a 30-year-old tries to weasel their way into a 14-year-old's life and slowly manipulate them into sexting them, this would be grooming. But this argument goes against the definition. Oh, okay. I can't use the Dave voice for this one. This is the other gentleman. So Destiny's argument that a 30-year-old randomly sexting a 14-year-old isn't grooming, but if a 30-year-old tries to weasel their way into a 14-year-old's life and slowly manipulate them into sexing them, I don't know why it says sexing them, this would be grooming, but this argument goes against the definition of grooming. So sex with a 14-year-old would be child sex abuse and a serious crime. Quote, grooming, however, ordinarily refers to a process of building trust, access, or a relationship to facilitate exploitation. A spontaneous abusive act can be abuse without meeting the narrower process term. Farina correctly condemns the hypothetical, but wrongly says the semantic distinction itself contradicts the definition. So that wasn't Farina. There's a little, I'm going to make a note. That's a little mistake by my system attributing this to Farina instead of this other person that was in the video. I can't remember their name. Destiny sexually assaulted a woman. Destiny has a long history of sharing women's nudes and sex tapes without their consent. Destiny allegedly recorded a woman having sex with him without her consent. He has allegedly abused at least one of his female orbiters. The narration mixes direct assertions, allegedly, qualified claims, clips, hostile secondary commentary, and pending civil allegations. Each allegation requires a primary record, provenance, response, and adjudicative status. Pending or secondhand allegations cannot be summarized as a proven personal history. He is also being sued for non-consensually sharing nudes of a minor. The federal civil complaint alleges non-consensual sharing of intimate material, but it does not allege that the plaintiff was a minor. Public reporting states that she first met Bonnell when she was 19 and that the recording was later shared with a 19-year-old fan. Nudes of a minor is a serious factual distortion. The underlying civil allegations remain unadjudicated. So this one was very important and potentially something that could land Dave in legal trouble. because he said he is currently being sued for non-consensually sharing nudes of a minor. And there's a link to the federal civil complaint here as well. By the way, everything I'm scrolling through, if anyone wants to know, like, what are the top sources being used for this information, you can see that on the screen. If you look closely. Yeah, but that was a bad one. I think Stephen, like, obviously if Stephen sued Dave, he would probably just correct the public record and say, I didn't mean to get that wrong. And then that could be that. I don't know if Destiny will sue though. And then Dave says, speaking of being a sexual predator who supports Israel, do you think there could be a connection there? After all, Israel is a safe haven. Relocate to Israel and exploit its laws to evade justice, especially Zionist Jews, of course. Maybe that's why he's getting so cozy with Israel. There are documented cases of accused offenders using citizenship, the law of return or slow extradition to flee or delay justice in Israel. That evidence supports scrutiny of a genuine institutional problem. It does not prove a causal connection to Bonnell's political views, make the entire country officially a, quote, a safe haven, or justify implicating Zionist Jews as a category. Yeah, all that's good. And then just for the record, I will run across the screen the source register here. Source register. Well, we survived. Indicative assessment. Good. So all of those little things we just recorded, I'll be able to yeah, for some reason the Pangburn AI system had sexing in there. I'm going to investigate that. That'll be an interesting note from today. But I'm going to be able to make some shorts with this. So I am planning on doing a short series where, I'll be able to put like a bunch of these in shorts regarding this issue. Someone said, wow, you're really milking this cow. Well, it's not really, there's not much milk here outside of like, depending on what you mean by milk. If you mean by milk, maximization of well-being by way of giving example of how to be epistemically rigorous, then, yeah, I'm getting a lot of milk out of this cow. Financially, this entire stream today will probably make, probably like $50. But I think it's important. It's good. It's important to show good sound epistemic practices. I want to see more people in the world like caring about the truth, especially in politics where it's like drastically lacking, but caring about the truth in this way. It's not that I can expect that everyone's going to sit down for 18 hours to adjudicate, a Dave Farina propaganda video, but there's some important lessons here. Like maybe people will, take some time once in a while to check the things they believe politically, as opposed to just believing what a political pundit is maybe telling them about what's going on in the world that might be, misinformation. Well, I think that's it for tonight. I'm going to have a little food, relax a bit, and I'm actually going to probably head over to Discord and hang out for a few minutes in our tavern there. If anyone wants to stop by and say hello while I eat a little bit of food and wind down. But thank you all again for being with me today. I have a lot of content to edit now for all the stuff related to Dave Farina's video. What we're going to focus on, I'm going to focus on live streaming some other stuff, and hopefully all of you guys will send me some interesting ideas as to what I should do some fact checking on next. I have a lot of Hassan messages from people. Someone said, have a good night. I got an email to you earlier in the stream, but I'm going to go to bed as well. Yeah, some people have said, Hassan, people have said they would love to see me clean up the Russia-Ukraine issue. And apparently there is just an incredible amount of misinformation related to that topic that people are falling for. So yeah, I mean, no one is free from my fact-checking wrath. But yeah, we'll keep going. We'll keep doing it. But yeah, thanks for being with me here today. Make sure you're out there continuing to maximize well-being for yourself and those around you. And yeah, well, maybe we'll do that clip tomorrow, because I am kind of beat. Yeah, make sure you're maximizing well-being for yourself and those around you. And I hope you guys have a great rest of